Chapter 400. The golem's body shook slightly, and its speed was greatly reduced. Sullen's figure flashed, and he had already circled to the other leg. Its leg is damaged. Attack the other leg and make it lose its ability to move, Sulen said in a deep voice. The leg joint was damaged, the golem's movement speed was limited, and its attack was blocked by Sulen, so its threat to the others was greatly reduced. Slash. Rogue Barnes' figure flashed and appeared behind the golem. The curved sword in his hand quickly slashed at the golem's leg joint. Among the four of them, his defense was the lowest. Like Jane and Valadin, he could still resist one or two attacks, but if he was hit, he would probably be killed directly. The sharp curved sword quickly slashed a few times at the golem's leg joint, and then he didn't have time to look at the result of the battle. Before the golem's counterattack came, his figure flashed and directly fled. After being attacked by Suren, the golem became exhausted. After several consecutive sneak attacks by Bane, cracks finally appeared on the golem immortal's leg joints. Boom! A huge impact sounded, and the ground under Sullen's feet burst, and his body retreated with the help of the impact. At this time, the dwarf Valadin finally recovered, and then he waved his battle axe and rushed up again. Watch me. Valadin's two short legs ran quickly, and in the blink of an eye, he rushed to the front of the golem, and the battle axe in his hand smashed fiercely at the golem's leg joint. But before he could hit the target, a black shadow appeared in front of him in an instant. Duan with a muffled sound, the next second, Valadin flew out at the same speed. Then he slammed into the wall. Even if the dwarf had a strong physique and well-made armor, he was in pain all over and couldn't get up for a while. Taking advantage of the gap between the golem's attack, Sullen's figure flashed and rushed up again. The storm halberd in his hand carried dazzling lightning and hit the golem's leg joint fiercely. As a legendary weapon, the storm halberd's blade was very sharp, and it could easily cut through gold and jade. Coupled with Sullen's terrifying strength, the golem's broken leg joint could no longer support it. Thunderbolt slash. With a flash of lightning and sparks, the storm war halberd drew a cold light and instantly cut into the leg joint of the golem. Crack. The sound of metal breaking rang out, and the legs of the high-level golem could no longer support its heavy body. After swaying a few times, it crashed to the ground. With one leg broken and the other leg badly damaged, the puppet golem lost the ability to move and could no longer pose a threat to Sulen and the others. The puppet golem's eyes flashed with a red light. It tried to stand up with its arms supporting its body, but it couldn't maintain its balance without a leg. Suluen's figure flashed and appeared on top of the puppet golem. He exerted force with his feet and stomped the puppet golem down. The storm battle halberd flashed with a cold light and pierced towards the back of the puppet golem's head. After a few consecutive hits, a huge wound appeared on the back of the puppet golem's head, and the components inside were destroyed. Next, Sulen destroyed the joints of the puppet golem's arms. In the end, the puppet golem could only lie on the ground, unable to move. Only its eyes were still flashing red. Sulen moved his arms. He had consumed a lot of energy in the battle just now. It's finally dead. Barn breathed a sigh of relief and then sat on the ground. Although he wasn't injured just now, he had to concentrate on such a dangerous battle. This thing is too hard to chew. My scimitar was almost scrapped, Bane said with some heartache as he glanced at his severely damaged scimitar. After all, a good weapon was a second life for a rogue. Go and see how the two of them are doing, and then collect the spoils, Sulen said slowly after resting for a moment. When he heard Sullen's words, Barnes' eyes lit up, and he got up to check on the injuries of the other two. Although Valadin the dwarf was hit twice, the quality of the dwarf's armor was really good, and his physique was strong enough. Although he was sore all over, his body didn't suffer any serious injuries. The warrior Jane was a little unlucky. One of his ribs was broken. Fortunately, Barn was experienced in setting bones and reconnected his ribs. Sulen threw them a bottle of healing potion. This kind of beginner potion could speed up the recovery of injuries. Although it couldn't fully recover, at least it wouldn't affect their movements. Looking at the puppet golem in front of him, he was very interested in this thing. Although it was damaged, the design, structure, and components inside were at the level of the Arcane Kingdom's craftsmanship. He would take it back and let Hathaway study it to see if it could be repaired. Even if it couldn't be repaired in the end, he would still get a lot of useful information. If this golem had enough energy and was in good maintenance, its challenge level would be at least legendary, or even high legendary. For example, the elemental Fisher Light Blade. How could an ordinary magic golem be equipped with such equipment? Sulen put the entire golem into his storage space. Fortunately, his storage space was large enough to fit the 3-meter-tall golem. Su Luan looked around and even found the broken zeros of the golem puppets one by one. While Su Len was collecting the golem puppets, the others had already begun to enter the ruins to look for valuable things. After he put away the golem puppets, the three of them came out with a lot of things. Su Len glanced around and pointed at some magic gems and elemental crystals that seemed to have been removed from something. They were quite valuable. After collecting the spoils of war, everyone began to patrol the surroundings. Many places had been buried by sand and stone, but judging from the remaining buildings, even if this was not the core area of the ruins, it should be a relatively important place. Would an ordinary place have such a legendary golem puppet guarding it? Obviously, there must be a lot of good things here. Su Len looked around and said, "Bane, go call those workers and let them come down to clean up. There should be a lot of good things here." "Okay." Bane nodded and left through the passage they had come from. About 10 minutes later, the workers came with torches. These workers were obviously still afraid of their previous experience, but they came under pressure from Su Len and the others. "Okay, we have cleaned up here. There is no danger." Su Len comforted them and said, "Clean up here. When you are done, you can get 20% of the things you find here. I'm sure you've heard of the value of the items in the ruins." Su Len smiled and stopped talking. Su Len had become very familiar with the routine of holding a carrot in one hand and a stick in the other. Sure enough, after Su Len finished speaking, the workers began to clean up the ruins with all their might. The many torches illuminated the ruins very brightly. Su Len looked around and found that this seemed to be a square. The square was badly damaged and many buildings had collapsed. In the center of the square stood a statue. The statue looked like the image of a spellcaster. It was a very powerful wizard wearing a gorgeous wizard robe. He held a magic staff in one hand and a book in the other. His eyes were looking straight into the distance. However, the statue was damaged. One of the arms was broken, and even half of the statue's head was damaged. Su Len went forward to observe and found that there were some words carved on the stone platform under the statue's feet. It was written in the ancient Nesser language. "Great pioneer, teacher, star explorer, Suraran." There were some words below that introduced some of Suraran's achievements. Through these words, Su Len learned some of the history of this city. The Pearl of the Crescent Plain, Nordenham. "It's dug, there's a passage here." At this moment, there was a noise. Su Len hurried over. Soon, he saw a tunnel that had just been dug. This tunnel was still relatively intact. Bane carefully held a torch and entered it. "Look what I found!" Barn exclaimed in the passage. Valadin could not help but run in with a torch. "Moradin above, we're rich." After confirming that it was safe, Su Len walked in with a few craftsmen. The passage was not long and was connected to a solid stone room. After Su Len entered, he saw golden light everywhere. It took him a few seconds to recover and then he could not help but exclaim. "So many gold coins." Surin was surprised by what he saw. In this small room, there were 3 chests piled up. It seemed that because of the passage of time, these chests had decayed, so the gold coins in the chests were all scattered out. A large number of gold coins were piled up on the ground, and Barnes and Valadin were holding bags to put the gold coins in. "You guys go and help too." Su Len waved his hand. The eyes of the workers behind him lit up. They had been impatient for a long time. When they heard Sullen's words, Ji Hu immediately rushed up. Sulan did not care about the gold coins. Instead, he looked around the room. In addition to the gold coins, there were many other things stored here, but most of them had decayed because of the passage of time. Sulan tried to pick up a sheepskin scroll, but as soon as he exerted force, the scroll shattered into countless pieces. The other sheepskin scrolls around it also shattered into ashes. Seeing this, Sulan shook his head slightly and then looked for other things. The stone room in front of him seemed to be a treasure room, but he did not know who the original owner was. In addition to the 3 boxes of gold coins, Sulan also found some gems and even a lot of silk. However, like the sheepskin scrolls, they all turned into ashes with a light touch. Basically, except for the metal and gems that were preserved, the rest had decayed and been damaged. Chapter 401. After some inventory, they found a total of more than 14,000 gold coins in this treasure room. Moreover, the gold coins in these ruins were much better than the gold coins in circulation today, both in terms of craftsmanship and gold content. This kind of gold coin could usually be exchanged for 3 ordinary gold coins. The 14,000 gold coins in front of them would be more than 40,000 gold coins after all the gold coins were exchanged. These gold coins would be given out when they left the ruins. With these gold coins, the morale of the whole team was high and they dug with all their might. About an hour later, the workers dug another passage. Unlike the treasure room just now, the passage in front of them was very long and had many gaps in it. Sulan walked in first. After walking in the passage for about 5 minutes, the group finally came out. Sulan and the others came to another area. This area should be the noble area of the city. Although the buildings were badly damaged, it could still be seen that the materials of these buildings were good. Many of the buildings were made of marble. There were many corpses on the ground. At this time, these corpses had become mummies in the dry desert environment. Among these corpses, Sulan also found a few steel golems. The surface of these steel golems was rusty, their bodies were seriously damaged, and their power source had been scrapped. They could only be recycled and sold as scrap iron. At this time, Sulan felt a little uncomfortable and quickly reminded them, "Go back, there is a strong corpse smell in here." The workers at the back immediately retreated. With a snap of his fingers, a whirlwind appeared in his palm. Then, he gently threw it. The whirlwind instantly turned into a gust of wind and blew out. Soon, the air here was replaced. Although there was still some corpse smell in the air, it was no longer harmful to humans. Kacha! Kacha! There was a burst of noise. The next second, the corpses that were originally dead slowly stood up. Mummies! Everyone, be careful. Sulan did not care about these mummies. These mummies in front of him were not very strong and were afraid of fire. With a snap of his fingers, a flame flashed. Burning hand. The high-temperature flame appeared in an instant and ignited the resurrected mummies. Then, under his control, the flame flew and spread like a living dragon. In a short time, the hundreds of mummies in front of him were all ignited. Rumble. Just as Sulan thought he could get rid of all the mummies, a few mummies that were burning in the sea of fire were thrown over. A powerful death energy suddenly appeared. Prepare for battle. Sulan's eyes narrowed. He gently waved his storm battle halberd and sent a few mummies flying away. At the same time, the power of thunder and lightning in his body burst out. Ding! You are affected by the power of death. Your life force is being extracted. Your constitution has passed the test. Extraction failed. Ding! You have been affected by the spirit of despair. Your will has been attacked. Your will has passed the test. You are immune to the effects of the spirit of despair. Ding! You have been affected by the land of blasphemy. You have been attacked by the power of blasphemy. Your vitality has passed the test. You are immune to this attack. Suddenly, an evil force appeared, and Sulan heard the continuous sound of system notifications. Then, a strange mummy that was different from all the previous mummies appeared in front of him. Ancient mummy, high undead. Mummies were originally undead creatures that were commonly seen in the desert. Some were mummies that were made, while some were mummies that were produced due to natural reasons such as the climate. Usually, due to the dry air and hot temperature in the desert, corpses could easily become mummies. After being contaminated with some negative energy, the mummy would be resurrected as an undead creature. The strength of these mummies was limited. Although their defense was good and they were fast, these mummies were very afraid of fire. As long as they were careful, even ordinary civilians could deal with them. However, among these mummies, once some mutation or evolution occurred, their strength would be greatly increased. For example, the poison mummy and the ancient mummy were similar. Sulen was now facing an ancient mummy. The ancient mummy was much more powerful than the poison mummy. Most importantly, the ancient mummy was already a legendary creature. Any creature that had the word ancient added to it would become very powerful. For example, the ancient dragon was the most powerful creature in the material world. Although the ancient mummy was also very powerful, it was far inferior to the ancient dragon. The challenge rating of the ancient mummy was level 20, and it had many spell-like abilities. Previously, Sulen had to be judged by the negative energy surrounding it when he was attacked. The ancient mummy was a powerful monster that appeared after hundreds or even thousands of years after ordinary mummies absorbed a powerful death energy. It could be said that it was very difficult to deal with. In addition to these, the ancient mummy also had high undead, negative energy erosion, immunity to ordinary weapons, corpse belt entanglement, fast movement, disease, curse, and more than a dozen other abilities. Of course, this kind of ancient mummy was not the most powerful. There was a kind of demigod mummy that was above the ancient mummy. However, this kind of monster rarely appeared in the material plane. Even if there were, most of them were sealed in remote corners. The creatures stronger than the demigod mummy were the abominations, life witherers. This was a powerful monster that was born in the god of death. Because they died before they were born, the life witherers had a strong hatred for all the living. This kind of monster was the legitimate child of the gods and was even more powerful than the demigod. The difference between them and the gods was that they did not have divinity. An evil energy field quickly spread out, suppressing the burning flames. The intensity of the fire was greatly reduced. Immediately after, a tall and big mummy walked out. This was a monster that was covered in bandages and surrounded by a strong death energy. Its scarlet eyes stared at Sulen. Whoosh! A strange figure dashed over. It was the ancient mummy. In a flash, it passed through the sea of fire and pounced on Sulen. Sulen frowned as he smelled a foul odor. This damn mummy didn't care about martial ethics and even dabbled in biochemical weapons. A monster wrapped in bandages rushed out from the shadows. Sulen's storm war halberd swept out, and a powerful force was transmitted. The mummy's figure was forcibly blocked, and it was even forced back a few steps by Sulen's weapon. Bah! It's too smelly. He was surrounded by a strong stench. Sulen almost thought that he couldn't breathe. Wild wind. A whirlwind appeared around Sulen. This whirlwind had no lethality, and its only effect was to blow away the surrounding air. With the help of the wild wind's skill, Sulen felt much better. Then he rushed to the culprit again, the ancient mummy. Greater haste. Dragon strength. Bear's endurance. Cat's grace. Insight. Rays of light rose from Sulen's body, and Sulen's speed increased again. He moved and appeared around the ancient mummy, swinging his storm battle halberd. Cleave. Sulen swept past from the right, and the storm battle halberd hit the ancient mummy. The originally withered body of the ancient mummy had been modified by the rich death energy, and it was abnormally tough. Sulen felt as if he was cutting steel. And as he attacked, a powerful negative energy quickly enveloped his body and tried to invade it. Sulen frowned as a chill came over him. The next moment, a powerful force of thunder and lightning erupted from his body, and the dazzling lightning instantly dispersed the negative energy enveloping him. The chill around Sulen's body disappeared in an instant, and the powerful force of lightning turned into countless flashing lightning snakes that attacked the ancient mummy. Large amounts of lightning appeared on the ancient mummy's bandages. Thunder cleave. The storm battle halberd took advantage of the recoil force and spun in the air. Then, it struck again with the power of thunder. Lightning flashed on the primordial mummy's body, and a huge hole was cut in the bandage, revealing the dark brown body inside. It was the mummy's dried flesh. Death entanglement. The ancient mummy was pushed back by Sullen's attacks, and its body was constantly attacked by lightning. The ancient mummy roared angrily, but it was useless. At this moment, the ancient mummy moved back slightly, and the bandages on its body wrapped around Sulen like the tentacles of an octopus. In an instant, countless bandages appeared around Sulen, directly sealing his surroundings, and then suddenly wrapped around him. Sulen could not dodge in time, and was instantly bound by a few bandages. The moment he was bound, a cold force tried to invade Sullen's body through the bandages. At the same time, his life force was being pulled and sucked away. Thunder field. The powerful force of lightning exploded from Sullen's body, and directly removed the cold force that had invaded his body. The life force that was being pulled away was restored to normal. Since you like to absorb so much, I'll give it to you. Sulen smiled ferociously and grabbed the bandages with one hand. The violent force of lightning in his body flowed through the bandages and into the ancient mummy's body. In an instant, the two types of energy exploded in the ancient mummy's body. Large amounts of lightning flashed, and strands of negative energy kept spreading. The ancient mummy's body was constantly crackling, and its body was constantly trembling. The bandages that were tightly wrapped around its body also loosened. Sullen's arm exerted force, and he grabbed the bandages with one hand and threw them out. In the next second, the ancient mummy's body fell heavily to the ground. Sulen did not let go, and he grabbed the bandages on the ancient mummy's body with one hand and slammed it hard. The marble floor in the ruins was full of cracks. Chapter 402. Everyone was stunned by what they saw, especially Valadin and Jane. As warriors, they knew how strong the ancient mummy was. Their faces were filled with disbelief. Although they already knew that Sulen was very powerful in the battle with the puppet golem, they were still stunned when they saw Sulen holding the ancient mummy and smashing it around like a sandbag. Sullen's strength was now 50 points, while the average legendary warrior's strength was around 25 or 26 points. Even the giants, who were known for their strength, only had around 40 points. Only the puppet golem's strength could compare with Sullen's. Sullen's entire body was covered with a layer of lightning. Powerful lightning energy burst out. After grabbing the ancient mummy, he used his arm to smash the ancient mummy to the ground again. Bang! 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 Numerous pits appeared on the hard ground of the ruins. Then, the sound of the ancient mummy being smashed could be heard. Along with the trembling of the ground, the ancient mummy was being smashed back and forth. In just a few breaths of time, pits appeared on the ground one after another. The bandages on the primordial mummy's body had also become tattered. Its bones, which were originally as hard as steel, had begun to crack under the continuous heavy blows. Bang! Another loud noise. The bandages in Sullen's hand finally could not withstand the pressure and completely broke. Although Sulen did not attack again, the ancient mummy was unable to move for a while. Sulen did not give it a chance to recover. The storm battle halberd in his hand shone with lightning again. The storm battle halberd stabbed down fiercely. Dazzling lightning enveloped the area. The powerful lightning energy made everyone who was dozens of meters away feel a sense of oppression like a natural disaster. Thunder Dragon Strike. Sulen jumped up and stabbed the storm battle halberd in his hand at the ancient mummy's head. Boom! Lightning flashed. The storm battle halberd directly pierced the ancient mummy's head and deeply penetrated into the ground. Crack! With a light sound, Sulen slowly withdrew his weapon. A big hole was opened in the head of the ancient mummy on the ground. Whoosh! With a sigh of relief, the power of death on the ancient mummy's body quickly dissipated. Then, the body turned into countless dust like sand. A vague shadow appeared in front of Sulen. It was a middle-aged man who looked quite valiant. Judging from his skin color, he was very similar to the desert people. He smiled at Sulen and bowed. The next second, he directly turned into a faint fluorescent light and disappeared in front of Sulen. Clang! A purple soul crystal fell to the ground. Sulen quietly watched the soul dissipate. Then, he gently waved his hand, and the soul crystal flew into Sulen's hand. Ding! Congratulations, host. You have successfully killed the primordial mummy. You have received 86,300 experience points and the battle soul stone. You have obtained the item Mithril Ingot X1. Congratulations, host. You have successfully killed the primordial mummy. You have obtained a platinum treasure chest X2. Congratulations, host. You have successfully killed the primordial mummy. You have obtained a legendary skill point. Battle of the Desert Ruins, level, legendary. July, 1688 of the Huiwe calendar. You brought a map of the ruins to the desert to search for treasures. After a search, you have successfully found the desert ruins. You have also defeated the poison mummy, the advanced golem puppet, and an ancient mummy in the ruins. Your name has spread throughout the desert country. Prestige plus 15. Ding! Congratulations, host, you have successfully killed 356 mummies. You have gained 356 experience points. You have gained an item, air-dried bandage X20. A series of system notifications rang in his ears. Sulen slowly breathed a sigh of relief. The powerful lightning energy on his body dissipated, and the pressure around him gradually dissipated. After moving his body, Sulen lightly jumped and landed on a relatively intact piece of ground. He turned his head and looked at the passage behind him. The craftsmen were like quails, quickly shrinking their heads. Their eyes were fixed on their toes, not daring to raise their heads. Many of them were even trembling slightly. Valadin, the dwarf who always liked to speak loudly, seemed to have something stuck in his throat. He looked at Sulen with a pale face. The rogue Bane's hand holding his sword was trembling slightly, and his forehead was covered in cold sweat. The warrior Jane's body was also trembling slightly, and his expression was extremely stiff. It was obvious that all the muscles in his body had been stretched to the extreme. All right, what are you still standing there for? Clean up the battlefield and continue to search for the ruins. Sulen said to them. He then turned around and walked into the ruins. Phew. Bane quietly breathed a sigh of relief. The pressure had dissipated, and it was as if he had been reborn. Suddenly, he heard a violent gasp. That almost scared me to death. It was too scary. A worker next to him whispered. Yeah, my heart was in my throat. Our adventurer team has killed the primordial mummy. When we go back, those people will definitely be scared to death. Valadin the dwarf's loud voice rang out. What are you jealous of? That primordial mummy was killed by the captain's stomach. What are you so proud of? Jane, the warrior next to him, said. The captain and I are in the same team. If the captain killed it, it was also our team that killed it, Valadin the dwarf said with a stiff neck. Jane laughed. Then why didn't you go up just now? I was just about to go up. Who knew that the captain was too strong? That primordial mummy was too weak. It fell before I even made a move. Valadin's expression showed that it was not that he did not put in effort, but that the opponent was too weak. Aren't you the one who was so scared that your legs went soft? You're the one who was so scared that your legs went soft. All right, stop arguing. Didn't you hear that the captain just asked us to clean up the battlefield and the ruins? Be careful of the captain coming back to deal with you. Bane the rogue immediately reminded the two of them when he saw that they were about to quarrel. The two of them looked at each other, then snorted and turned their heads away. After Sulen killed the primordial mummy, he began to search the area. This was the noble area of the ruins, and also the essence of the ruins. Although it was very dilapidated and there was a big battle, there were still many good things left behind. At that time, this should be the place where the fiercest battle took place. There were broken walls everywhere. Many of the beautiful and solid marble buildings had collapsed. There were traces of battle everywhere. There were also many dead bodies on the ground. Many of the corpses had been resurrected under the effect of the death energy. However, the strength of these undead was not high. They were far worse than the primordial mummy. Wherever Su Len went, these low-level undead fell in groups. Even if there was a poisonous mummy that occasionally appeared, it would be taken care of by him in a few moves. Sullen's main purpose here was to find the Battle Soul Stone. He was going to build the hero's spirit pagoda in the Beifeng Principality. He needed 2 Battle Soul Stones. When he killed the primordial mummy, the system rewarded him with 1. Now he was short of 1. Battle Soul Stones were generally born in large battlefields. The battle in this underground ruin was very fierce, and the number of casualties was likely to be as high as hundreds of thousands. Su Len also found that the main reason for the destruction of this ruined city was the war. In a battlefield of this level, the probability of a Battle Soul Stone being born was very high. The area of the noble area was not small. Su Len spent some time only to walk around more than half of it. At this time, he suddenly felt a strange soul fluctuation, which was very similar to the fluctuation of the Battle Soul Stone he had seen before. Su Len paused, then closed his eyes and carefully felt the location of this energy. After a few minutes, Su Len suddenly opened his eyes, moved his body, and walked to the side. This was a completely destroyed palace. Collapsed marble pillars, broken decorations, and a large number of corpses were left on the ground. It was no different from the other areas. Su Len gently waved his storm war halberd, and a gust of wind blew, blowing the corpses up. A sparkling and translucent red crystal-like stone was lying on the ground. Su Len gently waved his hand, and the strange crystal flew into Sullen's hand. His luck was not bad. It was indeed a Battle Soul Stone. Su Len flipped his palm and put the Battle Soul Stone into his storage space. After obtaining the Battle Soul Stone, Sullen's purpose this time was completed. He did not continue to explore. The noble area was the essence of this ruin. According to the calculations of the previous ruins explorers, the noble area's harvest could account for more than 70% of the entire ruin. He did not plan to explore the remaining areas. The main reason was that the cost was high, and the harvest was just passable. And there was another reason. There seemed to be something sealed under the ruins. When Su Len was fighting with the ancient mummy, he had already felt that there was a powerful decaying evil force under the ruins. That force was more powerful than the ancient mummy that Su Len had killed. When he came to the desert country, Su Len had inquired in advance. Many of the ruins held the sealers, prisoners and test subjects of the arcane kingdom. Among them, there were some demon lords and even ancient evil creatures. The period of the arcane kingdom was the most glorious period of the Arcanist civilization. They even dared to go to war with the gods. They had studied the gods, divinity, and other powers. They had begun to touch the realm of the gods. There was nothing they did not dare to do. Those great arcanists imprisoned the demon lords, imprisoned the evil gods, captured the abominations, and even some taboo research. More than 80% of the taboo knowledge that had been passed down was researched during the period of the Arcane Kingdom. It could be seen how bold the group of arcanists was. Back then, they had almost overturned the gods. Who knew if there was an abomination, a demon lord, or an evil god sealed in this ancient ruin? With Sullen's strength, he might not be able to escape unscathed from these monsters. Maybe when he broke through the high-level legendary realm and stepped into the realm of demigod, he would talk to those sealed monsters again. Chapter 403. Su Len returned to the hall and left the VIP area in the ruins to the others to continue searching. Su Len began to check his harvest. Including the one he just killed, he had killed a total of 3 poisonous mummies and 1 primordial mummy. The poisonous mummy gave Su Len more than 9,000 experience points, 3 gold treasure chests, and a few high-tier soul crystals and jewels. The primordial mummy gave him 2 platinum treasure chests. Sulen now had a total of 5 treasure chests. As for the puppet golem, it did not give him anything. However, the puppet golem itself was a big harvest. If it could be developed, the high-end combat power of the Beifeng Principality would soar. However, it was not easy to develop such a high-end technology. He could only let Hathaway do it slowly. Sulen opened his inventory and found 3 gold treasure chests. He chose to open them directly. The system's cold voice rang in his ears. Congratulations, you have opened a gold treasure chest. You have obtained an item, arcane card. Congratulations, you have opened a gold treasure chest. You have obtained 3 skill points. Congratulations, you have opened a gold treasure chest. You have obtained the skill, Vampiric Touch. As the light faded, 3 items appeared in front of Sulen. He began to check the attributes of the 3 items. Arcane cards, also known as the cards of wisdom or the cards of miracles, these are the treasures left behind by the arcane kingdom. Each arcane card has a unique magic power. A complete arcane card has 108 cards. They may bring you good luck, but they may also bring you disaster. Currently owned cards, 1 of 108, is this a card draw? Sulen's face darkened. In the many games that he had played in his previous life, almost all of them had this card draw game that made the players cheer for the lucky king and the non-players chop off their hands. Generally, it was fine if you had a conscience. There was the so-called guarantee of 10 consecutive draws. However, there were some that were screwed. You might not even get an SSR card even if you drew 100 cards. As for Sulen, he belonged to the kind of people who could only draw 10 consecutive draws. As for the miracle of drawing a single card, he had never seen one before. However, ever since he came to this world, his luck seemed to have improved. Thinking of this, Sulen took out the arcane card and prepared to give it a try. The cards that had not been activated were the same on both sides. These cards were made of an unknown alloy and had a unique hexagram mark and the Eye of Truth insignia on them. Before it was activated, no one knew what this arcane card represented. This kind of arcane card could only be activated by inputting energy according to the patterns on the card. Sulen flipped through the card and confirmed that there were no problems. He then picked up the card and tried to inject energy. Sulen picked up the card and tried to inject energy into it. A faint light appeared. After the arcane card in Sulen's hand absorbed the energy, a ripple of energy appeared. Then, an image appeared in the center of the card. The first image that appeared was a library filled with books. This scene surprised Sulen. This meant that this card was most likely a knowledge card. He could learn a spell or obtain some advanced knowledge through this card. Then, the door opened. An ancient alchemy rune appeared and sank into Sulen's body. Focus. A magical force surged into Sulen's body and instantly merged with it. After Sulen's brain experienced a swelling pain, a cool feeling appeared. It felt like he had been concentrating on one thing for a long time and was mentally exhausted. Finally, after the cool feeling appeared, the fatigue gradually disappeared. The system's voice rang in his ears again. Congratulations, the arcane card, Focus, has been activated. You have awakened the personal ability, Focus. Your mental strength has increased a little. Energy modification completed. At this moment, Sulen felt that his mind was very clear. It seemed that after a long period of hard work, his mental strength had been tempered. His mental strength had become stronger. Focus, personal talent. After a long period of hard work, this has greatly strengthened your mental strength and knowledge. Whether it's learning, fighting, or doing other things, you will be more serious. Your learning efficiency will increase by 15% and the chances of being sneak attacked will be reduced. Sulen raised his eyebrows. This time, he had drawn a personal talent. His luck was really good. This kind of talent card was relatively rare. Among the 108 cards, only a few had this effect. For example, the effect of the Dragon Disciple card could directly give one the power of a Dragon Disciple. The card could increase strength to 20 points, constitution to 18 points, and charm to 20 points. It could also be compatible with the previous profession. In other words, this card could directly allow one to take on a profession. The person who obtained the Dragon Disciple card was a wizard. After taking on the profession of a Dragon Disciple, he became very powerful and later broke through to the legendary level. It was said that he had now left this realm to travel to other realms. Sullen's card was only a low-level one among the cards that increased attributes and talents, but overall, it was still very good. In addition to this arcane card, Sulan also received 3 skill points and a skill, Vampiric Touch. The skill points were also a good reward. Sulan looked at the description of Vampiric Touch. Vampiric Touch, the system's bloodthirst skill fused with the rules of this world. When attacking an enemy, the user can absorb the enemy's energy or life force and convert it into their own. Effect: after using, the user absorbs 50 energy or life force and increases the user's HP by 50 points. Effect lasts for 1 minute and disappears after absorbing 50 energy or life force. This skill might be a godly skill for others, but for Sulan who had physical healing, this skill was a little useless. 50 points of HP was roughly equivalent to a medium-level injury. Sullen's physical healing could recover about the same amount of HP. After looking at it, this skill only required 1 skill point. Sulan thought for a while and learned this skill. After opening the 3 gold treasure chests, Sulan opened the remaining 2 platinum treasure chests. Along with a burst of light and shadow effects, the system's familiar voice sounded in his ears. Congratulations, host. You have opened the platinum treasure chest. You have received the item, 9 Heavens Black Iron *1. Congratulations, host. You have opened the platinum treasure chest. You have received the item, Self-Created Hero Template *1. After hearing the system's prompt, Sullen's face showed a hint of joy. This time, he was very lucky to open the treasure chest. The 9 Heavens Black Iron could be considered a godly weapon in the game. In the game, not only could it increase one's strength, but it also had the effect of recovering one's life force. Moreover, it also had the Iron Wall talent. It could be said that it was very cost-effective. However, after coming to this world, he did not know what the attributes of this item would be. Sulan could not wait to check the description of the 9 Heavens Black Iron. 9 Heavens Black Iron, a magical metal that fell from the sky. It has incredible power. It is an extremely precious material that can be used to forge godly weapons. The 9 Heavens Black Iron contains a magical power. After wearing it, one will receive a buff. Strength plus 10, Constitution plus 10, and the additional innate skills, Regeneration and Iron Wall. The buff will be ineffective if one's attributes exceed 50. F***CK. 10 points of strength and 10 points of constitution. After seeing the buff effect of the 9 Heavens Black Iron, Sulan was surprised. One should know that in this world, an ordinary adult male without training would only have 7 or 8 points of constitution. However, this 9 Heavens Black Iron could actually increase both constitution and strength by 10 points. This buff could instantly allow an ordinary person to surpass a knight. As for the buff effect, it was also very practical. Sullen's strength had reached 50 points, and his constitution had reached 47 points. This 9 Heavens Black Iron did not give him much of a buff. As for the innate skills, Sulan already had them. The innate skills of this item could not be stacked. However, although it was not very useful to him, this 9 Heavens Black Iron was actually a material for forging godly weapons. Godly weapons, as the name implied, were powerful weapons created by the gods. Generally speaking, legendary weapons and legendary magical items were the next step up and were high-tier legendary items. It was still more difficult to become a godly weapon. When the gods forged godly weapons, they would need to inject some divinity into them. Only then could the weapons be considered godly weapons. One should know that divinity was very precious. Using one's own power to forge godly weapons was a very extravagant act. It was also because of this that the gods rarely forged godly weapons. After all, every time they forged a godly weapon, it was equivalent to weakening a part of their own power. This was also the reason why godly weapons were so powerful. The 9 heavens black iron in front of him could be used to forge godly weapons. In other words, he could forge godly weapons without using a small amount of divinity. This function alone was enough to make all the wizard organizations and churches on the continent fight over it. One should know that the godly weapons created by the gods were restricted by their alignment. For example, if a god from the lawful good alignment created a godly weapon, then the godly weapon's usage requirement would be lawful good. There were quite a number of godly weapons in the multiverse. Many powerful gods had left behind godly weapons. Many gods would inject their own rules and divine power into the godly weapons, and then give it to their believers to use. This kind of godly weapon could only be used by the gods themselves and their believers. Of course, there were also some godly weapons without owners that were lost in the multiverse. Many of those godly weapons were left behind by the fallen gods. There were very few godly weapons in the multiverse that did not have alignment restrictions. The Flail of Time was one of them. This was also one of the reasons why this godly weapon was so popular. Sulen still did not have the ability to forge godly weapons, so this piece of 9 heavens black iron could only be temporarily hidden. Before he had the power to protect this material, he did not plan to take it out. He would keep it in his storage space. Who knew if there would be a high-tier wizard or god who had nothing better to do than to do divination? His storage space could block this kind of spell. Chapter 404. Sulen's system had the ability to block prophecies, so he did not have to worry about being discovered by others. As for creating divine artifacts, he did not have the ability to do so yet. After putting away the 9 heavens black iron, Sulen took the last item, the self-created hero template. Sulen was already very familiar with this item. It could turn an ordinary person into a hero. He had not thought of who to give this item to, so he would keep it for the time being. In addition to these items, Sulen had obtained a legendary skill point when he killed the ancient mummy. After thinking for a while, Sulen used the legendary skill point on his advanced regeneration talent. Are you sure you want to use the legendary skill point on the talent, advanced regeneration? Yes. After Sulen confirmed, the legendary skill point on the system panel slowly disappeared. Then, a strong force surged into Sulen's body. At this moment, his body seemed to be torn apart. Every inch of his body seemed to have been beaten countless times and then reconstructed. Intense pain came from his body, and in the midst of this pain, a powerful vitality appeared in his body. Every cell in his body seemed to be awakened, and a powerful life energy gathered in his body. At this moment, his body seemed to be reborn. A row of data appeared. Advanced regeneration has evolved into legendary regeneration. Your life force has increased. Your recovery ability has increased. You have obtained broken limb rebirth. Detected that the host has legendary strength. You have obtained the special talent, immortality. Legendary regeneration. After arduous training, you have finally broken through the limits of mortals and entered the realm of transcendence. After obtaining legendary regeneration, unless the heart or head is severely damaged, more than 50% of the heart or head is damaged, the other parts will quickly recover after being injured. Broken limb rebirth. After the body is damaged, as long as there is a certain amount of time, your body will regenerate. Phew. Sulen slowly opened his eyes and felt the changes in his body. Although there did not seem to be much change on the surface, Sulen knew that his body's vitality had become very high. With legendary regeneration, not only had Sulen's recovery ability been greatly improved, but his life force had also been greatly increased. If his lifespan was 1,000 years in the past, it had now increased to 1,500 years. In addition to legendary regeneration, Sulen also obtained another special talent, immortality. Immortality did not mean that Sulen could live forever, but that his body would not show signs of aging while he was alive. Immortality, special talent. requires the prerequisites of legendary strengthening and legendary regeneration. With the immortality talent, your body will never age and your physical fitness will always be at its peak. Note, you are immune to aging spells. After seeing the gift of immortality, Sullen's face showed a touch of joy. This gift was actually eternal youth. Although legendary professions had a long lifespan, they would still age, but the speed of aging was much slower than those below the legendary level, especially physical professions. For example, a legendary warrior had a lifespan of 200 years. Under normal circumstances, his combat power would be maintained at the peak of 130 to 150 years old. After the peak period, his combat power would slowly decline. In the last 10 years, his strength would even fall below the legendary realm. After Sulen obtained the immortality talent, he would no longer be limited by aging. After moving his body, Sulen took out a sharp knife and slashed it on his arm to observe the speed of his recovery. The sharp knife slashed and a shallow wound appeared on his arm. With legendary toughness, his body's defense had become very high. Ordinary knives could no longer hurt him. The knife Sulen used was a magic item with sharpness +1 and armor penetration +1. Blood flowed out, but after a moment, the wound began to scab. After a while, the scab completely fell off with a gentle touch. The wound just now had disappeared, and the skin was as smooth as new. After checking his body, Sulen left the room. Next was the rest of the loot in the ruins. It took a total of 3 days to clean up the ruins. The main reason was that many places had been buried by sand and needed to be dug up again. The ruins were not very big. In the end, Sulen and the others collected all the valuable things they could find. In the end, a small mountain of treasure appeared in front of everyone. Looking at the mountain of gold in front of him, Sullen's eyes were dazzled by the golden light. The others around also stared at the mountain of gold in front of them, greed flashing in their eyes. How much is there in total? Sulen looked at the mountain of gold in front of him and asked. 63,500 gold coins, more than 1,000 pieces of jewelry, gold, and so on. There are 326 magic gems, magic crystals, and relatively well-preserved magic items, etc. No one is hiding anything, right? Sulen said casually. No, we've checked all of them. Barn grinned. Suluan knew very well that those workers might not have a secret stash, but it was not certain whether the 3 professionals had a secret stash. However, Sulen did not mind. The most precious things in the ruins were basically in his storage space. The rest were only gems and gold. Moreover, the 3 of them did not have a space bag. How much could they take? Then we'll divide it according to what we said before. All the workers will get 20%, I'll take 35%, and the 3 of you will each get 15%, Sulen said directly. Agreed. You've contributed the most in this ruin. We have no problem with you taking the biggest share. Bane nodded. I agree too. You're too generous. Valadin and Jane nodded. Out of the 63,500 gold coins, Sulen took 22,000, Bane and the other 2 professionals each got 9,500, and the rest of the workers got 65 each. Sulen did not take the gold, jewelry, and magic items. These things were of no use to him, but he took all the magic gems. The more than 1,000 pieces of gold were distributed to the 3 of them, and the magic items were also distributed to them. However, there were only a few items that were still in good condition and could be used. Sulen and the 3 professionals took out another 2,000 gold coins to compensate the others. The division of the treasure was successfully completed. 1 gold coin from the Arcane Empire era in the ruins could be exchanged for 3 kinnar. After this trip, even the craftsmen had almost obtained more than 200 kinnar. For ordinary people, this was a wealth that they might not be able to accumulate in their lifetime. After the distribution of the treasure, Sulen and the others left the underground ruins happily. After everyone left, Sulen gently snapped his fingers. The sand and stones beside him quickly slid down and the ruins were resealed. After that, Sulen also used mud to stone to turn the sand and stones into real stones and completely sealed the ruins. There was no delay here. Everyone was eager to go back. After getting rich overnight, they all wanted to go back and enjoy themselves. Who would want to work again? Sulen, I reckon that after this trip, the three professionals might even consider retiring directly. As for adventure, if it was not for money, who would be willing to dance on the edge of a knife? Many mercenaries and adventurers would turn around and leave the business after accumulating enough money. After all, if you were not careful in this business, you might lose your life before spending all your money. Then the hard-earned money would become someone else's. The return trip was faster than when they came. 2 days later, Sulen and the others returned to Halta. Back to Sulen's trip to the Desert Kingdom. In the royal city of Florence, in a beautifully decorated palace. Daniel was sitting in his chair with a distressed look. As the third heir to the royal family of Henry, he was quite favored in the palace. However, it was still difficult for him to inherit the throne. Since the beginning of the new year, His Majesty's body had some problems. All kinds of diseases kept appearing. Even if he invited the Bishop of the Church of Life to help treat the disease, the effect was not good. Everyone knew that King Henry's life was coming to an end. This was not good news for Daniel. If his father had been alive, then he would have had time and opportunity to go further. However, his father, His Majesty Henry, was not as energetic as before. Even if he wanted to pass the throne to him, it was unlikely that he could do it. As the third heir to the Kingdom of Florence, he did not have a good relationship with his two brothers. It should be said that it was very bad. No matter which one of them took the throne in the end, what awaited him would not be good. If it was better, they would give him a remote piece of land and kick him back. If his two brothers were more evil, it wouldn't be strange if they directly sent people to kill him on his way to his fief. In the end, they would push the blame to the bandits and he would pretend to be inconsolable, and this matter would be over. No one would pay attention to a dead prince. In the quiet side hall, the palace guards had all retreated. In the empty hall, only Daniel sat there quietly. "Dear, are you waiting for me?" A frivolous laughter sounded, and then a hazy figure appeared in the hall. The figure swayed gently, and a large number of ripples appeared in the surrounding space like the water surface. Finally, the ripples disappeared, and a charming and seductive figure appeared there. This woman was stunningly beautiful. Her every move was full of temptation. Her impressive figure was only covered by a few pieces of cloth. At first glance, one could not take their eyes off her. Her body was also covered by a layer of transparent gauze, which made her even more seductive. This was a peerless beauty. Chapter 405. Daniel was not surprised at all by the sudden appearance of the woman in the hall. It was as if he knew she would come. The woman in front of him gave off a seductive aura like a succubus. However, a wizard who was well versed in the lower planes and had mastered the study of demons and ghosts would be able to tell that the woman in front of him was not a succubus. Instead, she was a devil from the hell of Bator. A pleasure devil. This creature with the appearance of a woman had soft amber hair and purple eyes that rippled like a pool of water. Her clothes revealed her soft breasts and back. A smile appeared on her lips. Her plump red lips were slightly pouted as if she was waiting for a kiss, or as if she was pouting coquettishly to her lover. Deep in her eyes, there was a hint of playfulness, like a cat playing with a mouse. Pleasure devils were the evolved form of lustful devils. They were devils who were very good at disguising themselves. Their favorite thing to do was to seduce the followers of the gods into depravity. They did not like hell. To them, the material plane was full of ripe fruits that could be harvested. Pleasure devils would not feel guilty about seducing any man, or woman, of any race. It was their duty to collect fresh souls. They liked to seduce mortals into depravity. The more noble a person was, the more they wanted to seduce them. Pleasure devils liked to use all kinds of methods to make people fall step by step. Then, when the fruit was ripe, they would harvest it. Pleasure devils had the bloodline of fallen angels. In fact, the earliest devils all had the bloodline of angels. It was said that the devils in the hell of Bator were originally angels. During the war between the ancient gods of order and the bottomless abyss, some of the angels had been infected by the power of the lower planes because they had been fighting against the abyss for a long time. In the end, they fell and became devils. My dear Daniel, I haven't seen you for so long. I've missed you so much. The pleasure devil smiled seductively. Her eyes rippled, and her red lips curved into a beautiful arc. I'm reminded of the wonderful times we had together. You were so strong. So charming. As she spoke, the pleasure devil swayed her body and walked over. Her body was faintly discernible under the thin veil. It made one's breath quicken involuntarily. Daniel's expression was not very good. He coldly glanced at the flirtatious pleasure devil and said in a deep voice, "Enough, stop pretending. We're even now." "Of course we're even, but I like you, little cutie." A frivolous voice sounded. The pleasure demon walked gracefully to Daniel. Then, her body flashed and her alluring body instantly wrapped around Daniel's body like a beautiful snake. I still clearly remember the wonderful times we spent together. At that time, you called me little sweetie, now you're so fierce to me. I'm really sad. Daniel's breathing was obviously a little hurried, and his face had turned a little red. His body had also undergone some changes, but his rationality still prevailed. Daniel took a deep breath and forcefully suppressed the evil thoughts in his heart as he said in a deep voice, "Put away that trick of yours. It's useless against me." The pleasure devil watched Daniel's actions with great interest. She reached her hand into his collar and stroked his chest back and forth. She even stuck out her tongue and licked his neck and earlobe a few times. Just as she was about to go deeper, Daniel suddenly broke free from her embrace. "Angry? Seeing how uncomfortable you are, I want to help you," the pleasure devil said with some grievance. Daniel's body was a little stiff. He slowly turned around and took a few deep breaths to calm himself down. "Help me? How do you want to help me? Or what do you want?" It was not easy to get help from the demons. These guys who like to play with people's hearts would not help others for no reason. Moreover, they would also leave behind various traps when they helped you. Once you were careless, they would easily take away all the benefits, including your life. The demon's favorite thing to do was to use various means to exploit the loopholes in a contract. For example, some inconspicuous patterns on a contract were very likely to be traps. In the ancient arcane kingdom, the arcanists specially produced several books, How to Sign a Contract with the Demons, and The Demon's Trap. Just as famous as these books was the Guide to the Wishing Spell. When using the wishing spell, one would need to reach an agreement with the jinn. If it was just a simple description, the jinn would intentionally misinterpret it. One would need to use a more rigorous description to plug up all the loopholes. The pleasure devil tilted her head, wearing an alluring smile on her beautiful face. She propped up her chin with one hand and propped it up with the other. She looked at Daniel with great interest. "Souls, excellent souls. Although you've provided quite a number of souls, to be honest, the quality of those souls isn't very good. It can be said that their souls can't be polished at all. They are also unable to release that enchanting soul light. This time around, I hope that you can provide better souls." "Impossible," Daniel said coldly. "Previously, in order to provide you with the souls you needed, I almost handed over all the prisoners in the royal capital's prison to you. What else do you want?" Daniel's countenance was grim. A powerful aura rose from his body, and his abilities as a conferred knight were unleashed in an instant. The pleasure devil's expression was one of astonishment and fear. She even put on an act and patted her chest, causing her voluptuous breasts to jiggle a little. She approached with light footsteps, as if she was not afraid at all. She exhaled and said, "My dear Daniel, don't be so angry. You've scared me. Didn't I help you increase your abilities and then help you take control of an army? Those officers have also sworn to be loyal to you. What else do you want? Do you want to take control of even more armies? I can help you with this. As for the reward, if you really can't do it, you can owe me first. If you can accompany me tonight, that would be even better. The pleasure devil stuck out her tongue and licked her lips. A strange smile appeared on her charming face. She then appeared next to Daniel with a flash, wrapping herself around him like a beautiful snake. Her palms caressed him gently and slid into his clothes agilely. Her petite body twisted slightly, leaving behind a series of lipstick marks on his face and neck. In the end, she even nibbled on his earlobe gently. At the same time, she said in an alluring voice, "Your words sound so righteous, but your body's reaction is so real. There's still plenty of time tonight. Let's enjoy it slowly." "Oh, right. I've just learned a few new techniques. Let's try them out today." Sulen was unaware of the changes that had taken place in the Kingdom of Florence. The embroidered uniform guards had just been established. Even if they possessed various professional skills, they would still need to integrate themselves into the locals before they could obtain any information. After the North Wind Dukedom was officially established, more and more people came to the North Town to do business. Caravans loaded with goods came one after another. From the outside, this caravan didn't seem to be anything special. However, if the experienced mercenaries were to take a look, they would discover that this caravan seemed to have a lot of manpower. After exiting the city gates, the merchant team continued to move forward for about 2 kilometers. "How many people are coming this time around?" A middle-aged man dressed like a merchant asked another person. Beside him, a warrior dressed like a strong warrior replied, "This time, we brought 200 people. All of them are illegal residents and slaves. I heard that you can earn money by providing food in the North Town. After working for 5 years, you can even get a piece of land. Those people are all fighting to come here. We didn't even spend a single copper this time. All we did was provide them with some food. If they were in the city, they would either starve to death or be sold as slaves. How can there be such a good deal? With so many people this time, we should be able to get a trading spot. It's so hard to get a trading spot in the North Town." "That's right. Who asked him to have so many good things? I want to buy at least 50 kilograms of white sugar this time." The North Town. After a long period of construction, the North Town looked very good. It was clean and tidy with green trees and flowers. More importantly, the North Town had a lot of goods that were in high demand. After transporting people and all kinds of goods from other places to the North Town and selling them, they could buy the goods that were in high demand in the North Town. In this way, a medium-sized merchant team could make at least 10,000 kinder in profit. It was a huge profit. Although the North Town had a lot of strict laws and regulations, there were still a lot of merchants who came here to do business. Many people even spent money to buy property here after discovering the sanitation of the North Town. They were planning to live here for a long time. "After we go back this time, send people to the nearby villages to recruit refugees. I'll send you some more people. There are more refugees in the villages. You don't have to pay for them, just give them food. Oh right, remember to pick them. Don't take the old, the sick, or the disabled. Just take the young and strong ones who can work if they are a family." "I know. We won't take in the old, the sick, or the disabled. They might not even be able to finish the journey. If they die on the way, our investment will be wasted." The man patted his chest and said, "Remember to let them eat until they are full. They will have to sleep and eat on the road. If they don't eat until they are full, they might not make it. Not only will they not make any money, they will also have to pay for the food," the merchant said to the others. Everyone nodded in agreement. After the third phase of the North Town's construction was completed, they began to send workers to Mirror Lake City. The second phase of the construction had already started. Sulen had set a target of 50,000 people for Mirror Lake City. At the same time, the fourth city was being prepared. This time, Sulen planned to build the city to the west of the North Town. The 4 cities would surround Sulen's territory. Chapter 406. The Duchy of North Wind's construction was still ongoing. From the North City to the Kingdom of Florence's Blackstone Fort, there was a 300-mile stretch of wilderness. There was not a single human city, which was very unfriendly for caravans. A small caravan without enough strength would not be able to traverse such a distance. Even for large caravans, the cost of traversing such a long stretch of wilderness was very high. It was also very dangerous. Therefore, the Duchy of North Wind's next goal was to build a new city 50 kilometers southwest of the North City. This way, not only could they expand the territory of the Duchy of North Wind, but it would also make the trade route more convenient and smooth. However, the problem that limited the Duchy of North Wind's development was still the problem of population. The most popular thing in the Duchy of North Wind was the population trade. On average, the population of the Duchy of North Wind would increase by 300 people every day. In a month, the population would increase by nearly 10,000 people. The increase in population did not cause too much of a problem for the Duchy of North Wind. For 2 years in a row, they had been reclaiming land and planting crops. Now, the food production in North Town City was enough to feed 10 times the population. In fact, this was still an undercount. There were 150,000 mu of land outside the North City. 2/3 of it was used to plant food, and the rest was used to plant other economic crops. Under the effect of the harvest altar, the potatoes in the North City could mature 3 times a year, producing more than 1,500 kilograms of potatoes. In a year, the North City's food production could reach 200,000 tons. Even so, the Duchy of North Wind did not stop reclaiming the land. By next year, the Duchy of North Wind's food production would increase again. The increase in food production brought about too many benefits. In addition to satisfying the basic needs of the people, the rest of the food was transported to the distillery and the farm. The North City's vodka production was very high. Vodka was very popular in the northern provinces, but the sales in the south were average. Every month, the North City made a lot of profits. In addition to the distillery, the rest of the food was used to develop the livestock industry. The livestock industry in the North City had moved to Centaur City. After a year of development, the livestock industry in Centaur City had developed rapidly. The number of horses in Centaur City had reached 5,000, and the number of cows and sheep had broken through 50,000. It was barely enough to meet the needs of the Duchy of North Wind. However, the number of livestock in Centaur City was still increasing. The development of the northern battlefront city was changing rapidly due to the large amount of investment. It could be said that it was the fastest developing city in the entire continent. Mirror Lake City's plan was to have a population of 50,000, and the new city they were planning to build also had a population of 50,000. In addition to the 150,000 in North Town City and 10,000 in Centaur City, the Duchy of North Wind needed a population of 260,000, and North Town City only had 170,000 to 180,000. Although the Beifong Principality had already been established, the population trade would be the top priority of the Beifong Principality for some time to come. By the time Su Len returned from the Desert Kingdom, it had been more than a month. Although he had been away from Northern Town for more than a month, the city hadn't been affected. Crazy and Hathaway had managed the city well. The construction of the new city in the southwest had also begun. The first batch consisted of 3,000 people. At this time, the city had already built some simple walls and some houses. The ones responsible for their safety were 500 soldiers from North Town City, including 200 spearmen, 200 archers, and 100 barbarian soldiers. After the construction of the camp was completed, Su Len would send more people to build the city. After returning to Northern Citadel, Su Len rested for a day before going to the central square of the city. He planned to build the Martyr's Palace. Some people said that tower didn't sound nice, but now it was changed to palace. The Martyr's Palace and the Arc de Triomphe would be built as a set. Su Len planned to build both on the same central axis. The main road of North Town City would pass through the Arc de Triomphe and reach the central plaza before reaching the Martyr's Palace. When Su Len was building the city, he had reserved a lot of empty land. There was also a lot of space in the central plaza. Sulan had specially reserved a piece of land for the Martyr's Palace. After deciding to build the Martyr's Palace, the construction team from Northtown City quickly arrived. The construction team had plenty of experience, so they had no problem building the basic structure of the Martyr's Palace. After Sulan gave them the blueprints of the Martyr's Palace, the construction team began construction. The construction of the Martyr's Palace required a lot of marble, and some places even required obsidian. The blueprint of the Martyr's Palace was tall and majestic. The entire structure was built with stone. There were many murals and sculptures inside the Martyr's Palace, depicting legends and battles that Northtown City had experienced. After arranging the construction of the Martyr's Palace, Sulan only needed to visit it every day. Once the construction was complete, he also needed to place 2 battle soul stones inside the Martyr's Palace. Only then would the Martyr's Palace be considered complete. Without the battle soul stones, the Martyr's Palace would only be a grand hall at most. It wouldn't have any special effects. Adept Tower, Astrology Platform. After a satisfying battle, Sulan shifted into a more comfortable position. He had just gotten his fill. His fighting spirit had soared after living in the desert for more than a month. After venting, his body felt refreshed. By the time he got out of bed, it was already late in the morning. A faint fragrance lingered at the tip of Sulan's nose. Several body scents mixed together, intoxicating Sulan. 4 beautiful faces entered his sight. He had tormented himself quite a bit last night. Even the little succubus Chris and dragon warlock Phyllis, who had powerful physiques, were exhausted. There were still traces of last night's frenzy on their bodies. Their smooth, delicate skin and astonishing elasticity gave him the urge to do it again. Fortunately, his willpower was strong enough to let the exhausted women go. Using his strong willpower, Sulan forced himself to get up from the soft and fragrant bed. He picked up a set of neatly folded clothes from the bedside cabinet. It was a loose robe, a style that the nobles of the northern lands usually liked to wear. After putting on the clothes, Sulan patted their full, round buttocks a few times. The full moon swayed back and forth like a jelly, abnormally alluring. What are you doing? Annoying, I want to sleep some more, I'm so sleepy, don't disturb me. I'll sleep some more. They rolled over and pulled their blankets to get out of bed. Time to wake up. Sulan couldn't help but pinch the jelly. However, the women on the bed were unwilling to get up. Sulan smiled and pretended to be happy. You don't want to get up? Since the weather is so good, let's do some morning exercises. With that, he pulled Alex up by the waist and curled his legs into a triangular stabilizing position. No, I'll get up right away. Hearing Sulan's words, Hathaway, Alex, Chris, and Phyllis instantly regained their vitality and scrambled to get up. Don't you want to do some morning exercises? You know, a good day starts in the morning. Sulan pretended to be very regretful and said. The women rolled their eyes and got up with a frown. The breakfast in the Wizard Tower was very simple, but it was made with great care. Milk, bread, and a few pieces of delicious ham were all it took. After lunch, Sulan and Hathaway went to the laboratory, and then took out the high-grade golem he obtained from the desert ruins, this time from the storage space. A 3-meter-tall golem covered in silver-white metal appeared in the laboratory. This is the golem you encountered in the desert ruins? It looks very powerful. Hathaway's eyes lit up when she saw the golem. This kind of high-grade golem looked extraordinary at first glance, with a strong sense of science fiction in the interstellar era. Yes, this thing was very difficult to deal with in the underground ruins. If it weren't for the lack of maintenance for thousands of years and the lack of weight, it would have been very difficult to take it down. Sulan patted the golem and said. You don't know, but this high-grade golem has a powerful equipment, the elemental Fisher light blade. This thing is very destructive, and its sharpness is amazing. Ordinary weapons will break with just a touch, and in terms of sharpness alone, it has surpassed legendary weapons. Elemental Fisher light blade? Are you sure? Hearing Sulan's words, Hathaway immediately asked in surprise. Yes, I've seen it used. Hathaway said with a look of joy, the elemental fissure light blade is a very powerful technology. Weapons made with this technology can reach the power of divine weapons, and can break the divine power field of gods and cause damage to gods. So powerful. Su-Len looked surprised, and then asked a little strangely, then why did I feel that it was only at the legendary level when I encountered it last time? This technology was first developed by the great arcanists to deal with the abominations. The abominations have the same divine power field as the gods. Later, when the arcanists and the gods went to war, this weapon was used to deal with the gods. When you encountered it, their energy was almost exhausted, so naturally, it was impossible to activate the strongest level. You should know that the elemental fissure light blade is a charged weapon. To reach the power of a divine weapon, it needs to be infused with all the energy of the elemental pool. As for reaching the power of killing gods, the energy required is even more powerful. Only a strategic building at the level of the floating city can support it. So strong. Su-Len was slightly surprised. Fortunately, these golems had lost their abundant energy. Otherwise, if this thing had reached the level of a divine weapon, Su-Len would have been in danger at that time. Chapter 407. Elemental splitting light blade was just one of the technologies used to fight against the gods in the era of the Arcane Empire. Other powerful weapons such as Super Arcane Crystal Pulse Cannon, Arcane Crystal Energy Annihilation Cannon, etc. During the era of the Arcane Empire, the great arcanists began to study a topic: how to kill a god. In theory, the easiest way to kill a god was when the god descended in the form of a saint. The power of the god would be greatly limited in the form of a saint. The best opportunity to kill a god in history was during the Avatar Crisis. At that time, the Avatar Crisis broke out, and all the gods were forced to descend into the world. They were also cut off from the divine kingdom and lost most of their power. When the Avatar Crisis came, many gods fell, and that was also the time when the mortals had the highest chance of becoming a god. At that time, there were records of mortals who succeeded in killing a god and became a god. But if it wasn't for the Avatar Crisis, it would be very difficult to kill a god. The divine shield used by the gods to protect themselves was enough to withstand dozens of legendary spells at once, and this divine shield had a rapid recovery effect. As long as the divine power in the divine kingdom was abundant, the divine shield would be quickly repaired. The best way to break a god's divine shield was to directly break through the upper limit of the god's divine shield with powerful energy. The strength of this thing was similar to the floating space city's enigmatic protective force field. After a large number of arcanists studied and calculated, they came to a conclusion that if they wanted to break a god's divine shield, they must use spells above the 12th circle. Only a spell of such power could kill a deity. Spells above the 9th circle were called legendary spells. Only legendary wizards could cast such powerful spells, and it was even more difficult to cast a 12th circle spell. In the records of the Arcane Kingdom, there were only a few great arcanists who had successfully cast a 12th circle spell, and the one who had successfully killed a god was Casus. After all, the power of Casus's self-explosion was too strong. This was one of the reasons why the war between the gods and the Arcane Empire broke out. Since the destruction of the Arcane Kingdom, many spells above the 9th circle had been lost. Only a few of them had been passed down, and they were all hidden by the wizard organizations and not shown to others. It was said that these lost legendary spells were actually destroyed by the gods. Of course, it was not as if the great arcanists of the Arcane Kingdom did not leave behind a backup plan. In many hidden corners of the multiverse, or in some ancient ruins, legendary spells were still preserved. Even when the Arcane Kingdom was defeated, the floating city still managed to escape. Su-Len also wanted to control this power. Although he did not plan to kill a god, for his own safety, he had to control this power. As for entrusting his safety to the mercy of the gods, Su-Len would not make such a mistake. In Sullen's previous life on the Blue Planet, history had taught him over and over again how unreliable it was to rely on other people's promises. The most obvious example was Ukraine. When the Red Bears disintegrated, Ukraine became independent. When Ukraine was independent, it had hundreds of thousands of troops, aircraft, artillery, tanks, and missiles. It even had 1,000 nuclear warheads. In the end, it was tricked by the NATO countries and destroyed all its nuclear warheads for only $10 million. At the same time, it also got a promise that it would not use nuclear weapons on Ukraine. As a result, Ukraine really believed it. Of course, there were also economic reasons. They were too poor. In the end, all nuclear weapons were destroyed. After the destruction of nuclear weapons, what happened to Ukraine in the end? From the world's third strongest military power, it became a small country that was bullied at will. If Ukraine could leave behind nuclear weapons, then they would now be an important force to maintain the world's nuclear peace, instead of an insignificant small country that was wantonly bullied. This high-level golem is for you to study. See if you can repair it for my use. Sulen patted the high-level golem and said, "Okay, I'll try to repair it." Hathaway looked at the golem and said, "This golem is not badly damaged. Although its legs and head were cut off, the core of the golem's soul is not damaged. I'll try to reconnect the legs and head. This golem contains too much knowledge that I haven't mastered. I think after careful study, I'll definitely master a lot of precious high-level knowledge." Sulen nodded. "Then it's up to you. If this one is not enough, then I'll go to those ancient ruins to look. There are so many ruins, it's still possible to find one or two high-level golems. By the way, did you find the super arcane crystal pulse cannon in the desert ruins this time? This thing is the main attack method of the wizard tower. Our wizard tower doesn't have this kind of strategic weapon yet," Hathaway said. "The super arcane crystal pulse cannon, I haven't seen this thing in the ruins." Sulen shook his head and said, "There are not many weapons of this level that can be left until now." The super arcane crystal pulse cannon was also known as the magic cannon. This kind of weapon did not need to be loaded with ammunition, injected with energy, and then fired with a bang. In fact, the super arcane crystal pulse cannon looked like a pillar, about 15 meters tall and slightly conical. The energy was provided by the elemental pool, and it was very powerful. When it was fired, a strong beam of light would appear. This beam of light was very fast, and at the same time, it had strong penetrative and destructive power. The lowest power was a level 9 spell, and the highest could reach level 11 or even level 12. After giving the golem to Hathaway, Sulen left the wizard tower. After returning to the Lord's castle, Sulen checked the territory's accounts. The wizard tower spent the most money. On average, it cost 250,000 kinnar to buy materials every month. The rest was the military and construction expenses of the northern town, and the immigration expenses. In this way, although there were hot products such as white sugar, paper, and rum, the northern town still spent more than it earned. If it weren't for the mineral support of the underground world, the northern town would have been unable to make ends meet. As for the construction of the floating space tower and even the floating space city in the future, the cost was even more astronomical. According to the estimation of the Arcane Kingdom, the construction of a floating space tower would cost about 50 million kinnar, and the construction of a floating space city would cost more than 1 billion kinnar. Of course, this was only the capital, and there were many resources that money couldn't buy. Just like the mice energy nucleus, who could buy it? Without the mice energy nucleus, the floating space city couldn't fly even if it was built. The mice energy nucleus was said to be a magical item created by the Arcane Kingdom in the early days with the help of the goddess of Arcana. The energy of the mice energy nucleus covered a radius of 1.6 kilometers, which was more than enough to build a floating space city with a population of 50,000. However, due to the war between the Arcane Kingdom and the gods, there wouldn't be a new mice energy nucleus. At that time, the great arcanists of the Arcane Kingdom also studied another alternative, called the elemental furnace. The theoretical knowledge of the elemental furnace wasn't profound. It could obtain a huge amount of energy through the fission of elements. However, although the energy provided by the fission of elements was large, it still couldn't compare to the mice energy nucleus. This technology was later used in the floating space tower. Later, the Arcanists developed a more powerful elemental furnace technology, elemental fusion. The energy produced by elemental fusion was 10 times or 100 times more than elemental fission, but this technology was broken through too late. At the end of the war, this technology was born. The emergence of this technology didn't help the success of the Arcane Kingdom. The breakthrough of elemental fusion made the emergence of the super-large floating space city possible. However, the elemental furnace, elemental fission, and elemental fusion were all high-end information in the era of the Arcane Kingdom. Hathaway only knew a few words, and it was difficult to obtain this technology. It could only be studied slowly. In fact, Sulen still had some information about elemental fission. He had obtained some superficial information about elemental fission from a relic when he was in the underground world. Sulen checked the affairs of the Northern Citadel during this period. The little succubus Chrissy had handled it well. There were no mistakes in the city. After checking all the affairs, Sulen began to think about how to open up new sources of income. One of the reasons why the Northern Citadel could be built so quickly was because of sufficient funds. He also wanted to install the arcane crystal rail cannon for the Wizard Tower. Although Sulen didn't know how this thing was made, Sulen knew that its value was certainly not low. First, he went to the warehouse. Sulen stored the arcane gold coins he had obtained from the storage space, as well as the more than 300 magic gems he had found in the relic. These things were almost enough to cover the expenses of the Wizard Tower for a while. After leaving the warehouse, Sulen went to the winery. The most popular product in the winery was vodka. However, although vodka was sold in large quantities, its price was slightly lower. The price of rum was higher, but the production of rum was low. Sulen thought for a moment and decided to try to see if he could make perfume. The process of making perfume was actually not difficult. On one hand, it required a high concentration of alcohol, and on the other hand, it was a problem of spices. The high concentration of alcohol could be obtained by distillation. It was not difficult to make the utensils for distilling alcohol. Sulen asked 2 skilled craftsmen to make a set according to his blueprint, and then through repeated distillation, a high concentration of alcohol was obtained. There were more types of spices. Spices could be extracted from various flowers, and then the extracted spices and alcohol were mixed according to a certain ratio. Then, a simple perfume could be obtained. It was not difficult to extract spices from flowers. The simplest way was to mash the flowers and filter them. Although the technology in this world was not as advanced as in his previous life, in many cases, the effect of spells was no weaker than that of technology, or even stronger. Chapter 408. Northtown's Mysterious Territory. Many harpies were harvesting all kinds of flowers in the mysterious territory. The mysterious territory had been restored for almost a year. It was a world of difference from the barren and dilapidated state it was in at the beginning. The air was filled with the fragrance of flowers. There were 2 rows of tall trees on both sides of the straight road. In the distance, there were lush flower fields. On the other side of the flower fields, there were all kinds of strange plants. After such a long time of restoration, all kinds of magical plants had been planted in the planting area of the mysterious territory. Most of the magical plants bloomed. In order to make perfume, Sulen planned to collect all kinds of flowers in the mysterious territory to make perfume. Perfume, or rather, perfume-like products, existed in this world. One of the more popular ones was the rose nectar produced in the kingdom of Caloransa. This rose nectar was very expensive. A small bottle of about 30 milliliters of rose nectar was sold for 50 gold nars. Of course, there were many other kinds of flower dews apart from rose dew. Sulen had seen the rose dew. In fact, it was very similar to perfume. Sulen's perfume did not have an absolute advantage. Therefore, he planned to mix the fragrance of the perfume while adding plant essential oils to the perfume. In his previous life, Sulen had always been single. However, one of his friends deliberately learned how to make perfume and lipstick in order to chase his girlfriend. He then made the perfume and lipstick in the school's laboratory for the girl he liked. Since he was going to give the perfume and lipstick to someone, he could not use cheap materials. Therefore, he bought some rose oil and added it to the perfume and lipstick. In the end, the perfume and lipstick were indeed very good. This guy even asked Sulen to help him. Therefore, Sulen basically knew the process of making the perfume and lipstick. After making the perfume and lipstick, his friend excitedly ran to the girl's dormitory with the lipstick and perfume, ready to confess his love. He heard that the girl was very touched and encouraged him to continue working hard. Then, she got into a Ferrari and left. Normal perfume was made with alcohol, some essence, and some retention agent. The retention agent was usually a spice. It was mainly used to balance and stabilize the perfume, making the perfume last longer. For example, musk, frankincense, and so on. As for those high-end perfumes, in addition to these, they usually add rose essential oil or other plant essential oils. Plant essential oil was very expensive. His friend bought a bottle of about 10 milliliters of it and spent 1,000 yuan. Rose essential oil was expensive because it was difficult to obtain. After the roses were picked in the morning, the yellowish-brown rose essential oil had to be extracted within 24 hours. It took about 5 tons of petals to extract 2 pounds of rose essential oil. It was easy to imagine why those high-grade perfume from Gauls were so expensive. Just a 50 milliliters bottle of perfume could be sold for a few thousand yuan. Northern Citadel didn't have a large area for roses, but there were a lot of flower fields in the secret territory. The largest one was the purple tulips. When Sulen discovered the secret territory, there were already a lot of purple tulips here. Even now, these magic tulips were still flourishing. Aside from the purple tulips, there were also magic mandala flowers, purple lingling flowers, and many other magic plants. Apart from a few petals that could be used as magic materials, most of these magic plants didn't have any other uses. Sulen planned to collect the flowers of these magic plants and extract their essential oil. After seeing the harpies collect a lot of petals, Sulen began to extract the essential oil. Although this world didn't have the advanced machines of his previous world, most of the time, magic could also do this. The bloodline extraction runic array could not only extract bloodlines, but also other substances after some simple modifications. There was also a laboratory in the secret territory. Sulen drew a modified extraction runic array in the laboratory. Then, he placed the 100 kilograms of mandala flower petals in the center of the runic array. As soon as the 100 kilograms of petals were taken out, the surrounding air was filled with a rich floral fragrance. With a snap of his fingers, the energy channel of the laboratory opened and the energy of the elemental pool entered the laboratory. After connecting to the energy of the elemental pool, a light flashed and the runic array began to operate. The light gathered and the mandala flower petals in the runic array quickly disappeared. In a short while, all the mandala flower petals were engulfed by the light. Then, the runic array operated for 10 minutes before stopping. When all the light dissipated, the mandala flower petals that were originally placed in the runic array had all disappeared. Instead, they were replaced by a transparent liquid and some gray powder. The liquid was the mandala flower's essential oil. As for the powder, it was the waste of the essential oil extraction. After a snap of his fingers, Sulen took out a crystal bottle and stored the mandala flower's essential oil. Compared to the amount of essential oil produced by the petals in his previous world, the amount of essential oil produced by the magic mandala flower was obviously higher. 100 kilograms of mandala flower petals produced a total of 200 milliliters of essential oil. The essential oil was transparent with a tinge of yellowish brown. The fragrance of the essential oil was very strong. Sulen let the system appraise it and checked its attributes. Mandala flower essential oil, the essential oil extracted from the magic mandala flower. It has a strong fragrance and can restore mental strength, detoxify, excite, and restore youth. Note, it needs to be diluted before use. After successfully extracting the mandala flower essential oil, Sulen started to mix the perfume. The various spices in the northern city had already been prepared. Sulen chose a few of them to mix. To be honest, this kind of work didn't suit him. However, he hadn't found a suitable candidate, so Su Len could only make do for now. After dissolving the various spices with alcohol, he added a small amount of water. Finally, he added the mandala flower essential oil in a 10:1 ratio. After mixing evenly, a bottle of perfume was completed. Magical perfume, unnamed, a special perfume made from datura flower essence and other essences. The fragrance lasts for a long time. It has the effect of recovering MP, detoxifying, delaying aging, and restoring youth. Fragrance +20, stamina recovery +8, poison removal +10, charm +10, delaying aging +12, charm +20. Note, the perfume effect lasts for 7 days. Can be used 1010 times. After using the perfume, when casting charm or other spells on others, magic power +10. This perfume effect is not bad. Su Len was a little surprised after seeing the effect. This perfume effect was surprisingly good. Not only did it have the effect of a perfume, but it also had the effect of slowing aging, charm, and detoxifying. After using this perfume, one's body would be buffed with a layer of buff. Su Len named this bottle of magic perfume Fatal Temptation. He then stored it in a natural purple magic crystal. Next, Su Len started to make the magic perfume again. After all, he had a lot of wives and 2 little maids. 1 bottle of perfume was not enough. Other than Chris, Hathaway, Alex, Phyllis, Angela, and the 2 little maids, Karina and Grace would definitely need the perfume too. In this way, Su Len would have to make at least 8 bottles of magic perfume. The good thing was that all the ingredients were prepared. As long as he followed the steps, he could easily make the perfume. However, Su Len did not want to make a perfume like Fatal Temptation, so he made some simple adjustments while making the perfume. Soon, the second bottle of magic potion was made. Su Len opened the system to identify it. This bottle of perfume was a little different from the previous bottle. This bottle of perfume had the same effect as the previous one, but the values were a little different. Next, Su Len started to experiment while making the perfume. After a few tries, he finally made the best perfume formula. Su Len stretched his body and looked at the magic perfume in front of him. This was no longer a simple perfume. Even if he wanted to sell it, the price would be very high. This thing could only be sold to the female wizards. If Su Len wanted to sell the perfume, he could only make a more ordinary version. The most important thing for this kind of magic perfume to have such a powerful effect was the ingredients. As long as he replaced the magical plants and flowers with ordinary plants and flowers, it would be fine. Next, Su Len used the same method to make a bottle of perfume with ordinary ingredients. Perfume, unnamed, a perfume made with datura flower essential oil and some other essences. The fragrance lasts for a long time, fragrance overflow +15, charm +15, aphrodisiac +5. Note, the effect lasts for 3 days. Number of uses, 10/10. After seeing the attributes of the perfume, Su Len nodded in satisfaction. Although this perfume was not as good as the magic perfume, it was much better than the rose dew from the kingdom of Caloranza. He believed that as long as the noble ladies had used this perfume, they would not let it go. Su Len planned to sell this perfume. As for the magic perfume, he did not plan to sell it for the time being. However, after he decided to make the perfume, he would have to open up some flower fields in the northern city. There was a lot of fertile land outside the northern city. It would be a waste to use it to grow flowers. After some consideration, Su Len decided to open up a flower field near the Mirror Lake City. There was also a lot of land in the Mirror Lake City, but without the buff of the harvest altar, it was just right to grow flowers. After making the decision, Su Len ordered the refugees to open up 3,000 mu of land near the Mirror Lake City to grow flowers. Su Len purposely picked the plants, including roses, lavender, datura flowers, tulips, and more than a dozen other plants. These flowers were the most popular ones. Chapter 409. Is this the perfume you made? Does it really have the effects you said? Chris held an amethyst bottle and played with it curiously. Sulen smiled slightly and said, "Of course it does. If you don't believe me, you can try it yourself." "Okay." Chris immediately opened the crystal bottle and sprayed a few times on herself. "It smells so good." As soon as she sprayed it out, a pleasant fragrance filled the air. At the same time, Chris, who was already very beautiful, seemed to have a faint aura around her body at this moment. She became even more beautiful and looked charming. Even Sulen, who was used to seeing beauties, was a little dazed after seeing Chris's current appearance. After a few seconds, Sulen reacted. He snapped his fingers and a light flashed. Then, a water mirror as tall as a person appeared in the room. "Look at the effect. Is this the effect of the perfume?" Chris looked at her figure in the water mirror and said in surprise. "Of course." Sulen smiled slightly. Chris's figure instantly wrapped around Sulen like a beautiful snake. Then, she said with a charming face, "Master, do you have any more of this perfume? Give it all to me, okay?" As she spoke, she secretly touched Sulen's lower body with her small hand. "You are provoking a war. Don't beg for mercy when the time comes." Sulen raised his eyebrows and said, "Humph, who's afraid of who? I will make you surrender tonight." Hearing Sulen's words, the little succubus said stubbornly, but the movement of her hands stopped. Although the little succubus's combat power was the best among the few girls, she was still defeated when facing Sulen alone. This proud little succubus who liked to train her subordinates was a little guilty, but she didn't want to give up on the magic perfume. She said weakly, "Please, master." As she spoke, the little succubus said with a righteous expression, "And these perfume are the best for me to use. Besides, master is the one who enjoys it in the end." "Humph. Master, how about I help you deal with Hathaway? We succubi have a lot of skills that you haven't tried yet." "Okay, I'll give you another bottle of perfume." Looking at the little succubus in front of him, Sulen held his forehead. "You sold Hathaway for a bottle of perfume. You are really arrogant. If Hathaway finds out, she will hang you up and spank your little butt." Sulen shook his head and gave her another bottle of the magic perfume. In fact, it was easy for the little succubus who was good at talking to deal with Hathaway. "Thank you, master." The little succubus quickly snatched the bottle of perfume and glanced at Sulen with satisfaction. She turned into a puff of smoke and disappeared. Sulen shook his head and went to find the others with the rest of the perfume. They were all pleasantly surprised after using the great magic perfume Sulen gave them. They were very satisfied with Sulen's gift. Hathaway even pestered Sulen for the method of making the magic perfume. She wanted to try making some herself. The construction of the Martyr's Palace in northern Battlefront City was progressing very quickly. Due to the abundant manpower and equipment in northern Battlefront City, the difficulty of the construction had decreased by a lot. They could even ask for help from Lorraine and Andre if they needed to solve some difficult problems. The construction of the Martyr's Palace changed every day. According to the current progress of the project, it would only take a month or two to complete the magnificent Martyr's Palace. After patrolling the entire city, Sulen left with 2 squads of soldiers. The one in charge was the commander of the sniper battalion, Kane. Due to the expansion of his territory and the construction of the new city, Sulen sent out the heroes under his command. In order to ensure the safety of the new city, Sulen sent Boulder and Johnson over. With the 2 of them there, even a legendary enemy wouldn't be able to withstand the attacks of 2 barbarians who had activated deity descent. Sulen was now a Grand Duke. When he went out, he had the corresponding etiquette and guards. He couldn't go out alone. He didn't want to expose himself when he went to the Desert Kingdom to search for ruins, so he didn't bring anyone with him. Now that he was in his own territory, he couldn't do that. After leaving Northtown City, the group headed straight for Mirror Lake City. The road between Northtown City and Mirror Lake City was only slightly repaired. Sulen frowned slightly. He planned to have the City Hall repair the road when he returned. He planned to connect Mirror Lake City, New City, and Centaur City with roads starting from Northern Town City. The roads would be 4 meters wide, and all of them would have to be paved with stones or stone slabs. This way, even if it rained, the roads wouldn't become muddy and difficult to walk on. The construction of the roads in Northwind Duchy was a huge project. It would take a lot of time to complete. As Northwind Duchy grew stronger, so would his territory. The construction of new cities and roads would continue. This project might be even larger than the construction of North Town. According to Suluan's requirements, a 4-meter-wide roadside needed to be paved with stones or slates, and open space on both sides of the road needed to be cleared. In this era, it was equivalent to the highway in his previous life. This kind of project required a lot of manpower and funds. Currently, Beifeng Principality was using refugees and slaves. Now, they only needed to pay some food and points. However, 3 years later, the slaves and refugees would regain their freedom and become citizens of Beifeng Principality. At that time, it would cost even more money to hire them again. After building the roads, Sulan was very clear about the cost. It was cheaper in the city, but in the wilderness, the further away from the city, the higher the cost. The cost of building a 1-kilometer-long road was already over 20,000 gold. This was because Northwind Duchy didn't need to buy many resources. It was no wonder that the lords weren't willing to spend money to build roads. Even if they wanted to build roads, they only needed to clear the weeds and fill in the roads. As for hardening the roads, only Sulan would do that. Mirror Lake City was 50 kilometers away from Northtown City. Sulan and his army arrived in the morning. In fact, if he let the Pegasus run, it would take less than 10 minutes to reach the city. However, although the horses the others were riding were also high-quality military horses, they were still worlds apart from the Pegasus. When they arrived at Mirror Lake City, the Pegasus snorted unhappily. It was clearly unhappy that Sulan didn't let it run at full speed. Sulan patted the Pegasus' head to calm it down. Then, under the guidance of Occam, the city lord of Mirror Lake City, they entered the city. Mirror Lake City was much smaller than Northtown City. According to the plan, the city's permanent population was set at 50,000. However, there were only 20,000 people in the city right now. The group quickly arrived at the city lord's mansion. The mansion wasn't big, and there were many places that hadn't been completed yet. Sulan sat down in the main hall. "Master, welcome to Mirror Lake City," Occam said respectfully. Sulan leaned back in his chair. The chair he was sitting on was covered in beautiful winter wolf fur. It was very soft. Mirror Lake City has been developing well recently. It's all because of your leadership. No need to flatter me. Sulan glanced at him. You did this. If you didn't kill that legendary water spirit, Mirror Lake City wouldn't be able to develop. It's all because of you, Occam said firmly. Sulan shook his head and didn't continue the topic. Are there any other monsters around Mirror Lake City? My lord, ever since you killed the water demon last time, there have been no more powerful demonic beasts here. The ones with average strength have been taken care of by us. However, there are still some kobolds, goblins, and gnolls. Their numbers have been greatly reduced after our Mirror Lake City's army wiped them out. For this reason, we have an additional 2,000 slaves. Good job, Sulan nodded and continued. We can't let down our guard around the city. Let the city guards clean up the area regularly to prevent those monsters from destroying the farms. I came to Mirror Lake City to see how much land has been reclaimed. How much land has been reclaimed in Mirror Lake City? Mirror Lake City has reclaimed 14,000 acres of land. 10,000 acres have been planted with potatoes and wheat. The remaining 4,000 acres have just been reclaimed and haven't been planted yet, Occam said after thinking for a moment. Sulan nodded and didn't say anything. The data was the same as what was on his system panel. Don't plant the 4,000 acres of land yet. I have a use for it, Sulan said. Understood. I'll tell them not to plant it. Occam nodded and hesitated. Master, what do you plan to plant? Plant flowers. Sulan said calmly. Flowers? Occam frowned after hearing Sulan's words. The other officials in Mirror Lake City were also surprised. However, this was Sullen's decision and they could only follow it. You don't think it's possible? Sulen took a sip of tea and said. I'm sorry, Master. I don't understand why you want to plant flowers. Mirror Lake City can't be self-sufficient with food. Occam said. Sulen nodded. He was satisfied with Occam's attitude. He took out a crystal bottle and placed it on the table. This is the newest product that North Wind Principality has just developed. It's called perfume. It has the same effect as the rose dew from Colorama Kingdom. This perfume is very popular on the continent. To produce it, we need a lot of flowers. That's why I'm planning to plant flowers in Mirror Lake City. Thank you for your explanation, Master, Occam said respectfully. The production of perfume requires a lot of flowers. This will be another important product in Northtown City. Next, I will send you more men and more food. Chapter 410. Originally, Suluan planned to plant 3,000 mu of land first, but he didn't expect that there were 4,000 mu of open land in Jinghu City. Then he planted all kinds of flowers, such as roses, jasmine, lavender, violets, tulips, datura, and so on. Mirror Lake City had plenty of water and sunlight, so it was very suitable for planting flowers. Sulen asked the caravan to buy a lot of flowers for them to plant. It also took time for flowers to grow. In order to produce perfume, Suluan asked people to collect some wildflowers first. Now it was the midsummer season, and wildflowers were everywhere in the wilderness. With some effort, they could still pick a lot. After staying in Mirror Lake City for a day, Sulen brought people back to Northtown City. Sulen picked a piece of land in Northtown City and asked the workers to build a perfume factory there. It was called a factory, but it wasn't much bigger than a private workshop. However, a sparrow might be small, but it had all the essentials. The perfumes Sulen was going to make wasn't difficult. The blacksmiths in Northtown City could make all the tools they needed. Even if the blacksmiths couldn't make the tools, they could make one with magic. Sulen then arranged for some workers to learn the steps of making perfume. The workers in the winery purified the alcohol, and the materials were mixed in the factory. The only technical difficulty was the production of the flower essential oil, which needed to be extracted from runes. Fortunately, the amount of flower essential oil used wasn't a lot. Sulen only needed to spend some time to produce 12 kilograms, and it would be enough for them to use for a long time. After everything was ready, the factory started to produce the perfume. The good perfume was all bottled in beautiful natural crystals. These crystals were of high quality, and after being polished by professional craftsmen, the bottles alone were worth a lot. In order to sell a product at a high price, other than the quality of the product itself, another important factor was the packaging. Just like in his previous life, during the Mid-Autumn Festival, there were all kinds of beautifully packaged mooncakes in the shopping malls. A box cost thousands of yuan, and there were only 5 or 6 mooncakes in it. The cost was at most 12 yuan, but the packaging could instantly increase the price by dozens of times. If he wanted to sell the perfume at a high price, he naturally had to prepare beautiful packaging for it. It had to be the kind that looked expensive at first glance. When some of these perfumes were produced, Sulen would sell them. Currently, there were more than 30 caravans trading with Northtown City, such as sugar and rum. Each of these caravans was backed by a great noble or a direct member of the royal family. There was no need to worry about the sales of such high-end perfume. As for the price, it was set at 50 kinner per bottle. Of course, considering that the perfume was a new product, the merchants were doubtful. Sulen gave them a condition. After buying 50 bottles of perfume, they could add 50 kilograms of sugar or 200 bottles of rum. Sulen had never released the sales of the goods that were in high demand in Northern Town City. Instead, they used a trading certificate system. In other words, they were selling them in limited quantities. It was hunger marketing. This method had been used by many merchants in his previous life. However, in this world, Sulen was the first to use it. The advantage of doing so was that their goods could be sold at a higher price. After all, if they were to sell freely, even if they had a lot of luxury goods like white sugar, they would become worthless. He did not intend to sell his sugar and rum at a cheap price. What good would it do him if it became cheap? Earn more money? Small profits but quick turnover? He would only do that if he lost his mind. He only needed to sell 1% of the perfume to make a huge profit. Why would he sell all of it to suppress the profits? No one was competing with him. This time, in order to increase the sales of the perfume, Su Len used the method of bundling sales. The merchants who wanted more sugar could only accept this method. The first batch of perfume produced 2,000 bottles. As long as each merchant bought 100 bottles, they could all be sold. Even if there were some left, Su Len would let the caravans in northern town city sell them. After the feedback, they would continue to produce the perfume. Even if they only sold 2,000 bottles of perfume per month, according to the price of 50 kinar, they could still bring in 100,000 kinar per month. It would take a lot of money to build a kingdom from poverty. Su Len had to keep making money. After handing over the perfume matter, Su Len had nothing to do and started to wander around the city. Because of the large number of adventurers who came to northern town city, these adventurers would often go to the wilderness to search for treasures. Therefore, there was a special market here. Occasionally, there would be some good stuff for sale. Su Len planned to try his luck at this market. Maybe he could find something useful. Since it was in the city, Su Len did not bring any guards with him. He went alone. This market used to be called the Black Market. It was located on the street next to the mission hall. Even the Black Market was under the supervision of Northern Town City. When Su Len arrived, there were still many people in the Black Market. There were stalls on both sides of the street. All kinds of strange items were piled up messily on the stalls. Some were materials from ferocious beasts, some were unknown things found in ancient ruins, and some were materials from magical plants or magical beasts. Of course, in addition to these, there were also some unscrupulous merchants selling all kinds of fake goods. For example, some merchants held a few pieces of metal and insisted that they were fragments of divine items. Some of them dug up porcelain jars from ancient ruins and insisted that they were magical equipment made by wizards. Some of them were even more ridiculous. They held some obsidian or polished bones and said that they were enchanted by wizards or shamans. They could protect themselves and drive away evil spirits. Su Len saw a guy like that in front of him who kept on recommending. This guy was not tall, less than 1.7 meters, but his body was very fat. His face was cunning, and he looked like a profiteer. If he was not a profiteer, it would be a pity for him to look like one. Hey, look at you. You're going on an adventure, aren't you? Don't go. I'm a proper merchant. I have a lot of things you need in the wilderness. Are you sure you don't want to take a look? Su Len did not want to talk to him. He was about to take a detour. However, the fat man was not discouraged. He turned around and continued to promote. You must be a new adventurer. The wilderness is not a safe place. You'll be at a disadvantage if you rush in like this. I have amulets here. They're enchanted by wizards and can drive away the undead. I also have holy water. Not only can it deal with monsters, but it can also heal injuries. Oh right, there's also this. It's a wilderness survival guide. I spent a lot of money to hire over 100 adventurers who often go deep into the wasteland to write this book. It records the various monsters in the wasteland, the places where they often appear, and some dangerous areas. It's definitely worth the money. Wen Dern followed Su Len and kept on recommending all kinds of products. However, Su Len kept on walking and ignored him. Seeing this, Wendell gritted his teeth, trotted 2 steps to the front of Su Len, and directly blocked his way. He spread his feet, grabbed his collar with both hands, and then, like a perverted exhibitionist, directly lifted his clothes with a swish. Su Len was startled, thinking that he had encountered a pervert. He almost took out his storm battle halberd and smashed him away. As a result, after this guy opened his clothes, he found that the inside of his clothes was filled with all kinds of goods. What do you think? These are all my collections. Do you like any of them? Tell me and I'll sell them to you at a cheap price. I like you, so I'm selling them to you. Sulen glanced at them. They were either wood carvings, stone carvings, or things made of broken bones. He was about to leave when he suddenly felt a strange energy wave. Looking closely, it was a somewhat strange statue. This statue should be made of some kind of wood, but Sulen did not recognize it. The statue's carving was rough and looked like it was made by an apprentice. The statue looked like a priest who was kneeling and praying. However, the strange thing was that there was a hole in the statue's heart. Sulen felt that the statue in front of him contained a very strange energy, which gave Sulen a familiar feeling. You like this prayer amulet? You have a good eye. After Wundern noticed Sulen's gaze, his eyes lit up and he immediately took off the statue amulet. I asked a master to carve this prayer amulet, and then I took it to a senior priest of the Church of Light to bless it with divine spells. The effect is very strong. With this amulet, ghosts, skeletons, and undead will have to retreat. As he spoke, Wundern handed over the amulet. Sulen reached out and took it. The statue amulet did not feel rough like wood. On the contrary, its surface was very smooth, as if it was wrapped in a layer of paste. The statue was of a woman. The woman's eyes were closed slightly, as if she was praying. The corners of her mouth were slightly raised. She looked very peaceful, but it gave Sulen a strange feeling. The smile on the woman's mouth looked more like a mockery. Where did you get this statue? Sulen suddenly interrupted Wundern's chatter. I asked a master to carve this statue, and then I asked a priest of the Church of Light to bless it with divine spells. This is the best amulet I have. It only costs 5 kinnar. Sulen stared coldly at Wundern and did not speak. After seeing Sulen's gaze, Wundern smiled and then made a gesture. How about 4 kinnar? More? Then 3. Take it as a sign of friendship. This was blessed by the priest. 2.5 kinnar. I can't go any lower. You have to let me make some money. Wundern gritted his teeth and said. Chapter 411. Sulen threw him 3 kinnar and then asked, Tell me where you got this statue. Wundern quickly used the kinnar, and even the rogue couldn't keep up with his speed. Then he put it in his mouth and bit it with his black and yellow teeth. You really have good taste. This amulet of mine is from, don't say that again, or I'll let the city guards send you to prison. Seeing that he was about to speak, Sulen reminded him coldly. What bullshit priest's blessing? Although there were energy fluctuations on it, it was definitely not a priest's blessing. And Sulen suspected that this guy didn't even know that there was energy on the statue. Wundern opened his mouth, but after seeing Sulen's cold eyes, he obediently swallowed the next words back into his stomach. After hesitating for a moment, he said, I accidentally picked up this amulet. Where did you pick it up? Sulen asked. On the road outside the city. Sulen was silent for a while. It was not easy to find the owner of this statue if he picked it up outside the city. After confirming that he couldn't get any useful information, Sulen waved at the city guards not far away, and 2 city guards immediately came over. Arrest him and send him to prison. The crime is selling fake goods. Yes, sir. Sir, please don't, sir, I was blind, I didn't know it was you, I'll give you the money, please let me go this time. After seeing the city guards coming over, Wundern already felt that something was wrong, but before he could escape, he was directly captured. Sulen waved his hand and motioned to take him away. After dealing with the profiteer, Sulen didn't want to continue shopping and left the market with the statue he just bought. After returning, Sulen took the statue directly to the wizard tower and then found Hathaway. Aren't you making perfume? How come you have time to find me? Hathaway took off her gold-rimmed glasses and said. Look at this thing. Sulen took out the statue and said. Hathaway took the statue in Sullen's hand and looked at it, and said hesitantly, "This is, evil god statue?" Sulen nodded. "It should be, the power in it should be the evil god's divine power." "Where did you get it? Is there an evil god in the territory?" Hathaway said solemnly. "I bought it from a profiteer. According to him, it was picked up outside the city." Sulen poured himself a cup of black tea. "So you want to find the original owner of this statue?" Hathaway immediately understood Su Luan's plan. Sulen nodded and said, "Now, we can only try your object-seeking spell." The object-seeking spell also belonged to the divination school, and it was widely used. It could be used to find people based on some objects or even auras. Of course, this spell could only find the general location, and if the other party was also proficient in divination spells, it was likely to be detected and even interfered with. "Okay, I'll prepare it now." Hathaway nodded and agreed. Then, Hathaway cast the object-seeking spell on the statue. A light flashed, and Hathaway frowned slightly. After a while, she opened her eyes and shook her head. The object-seeking spell didn't work. No reaction. Sulen was a little surprised. Hathaway was a little unwilling to give up, so she cast the object-seeking spell again. The result was the same as last time, and she still didn't get any answer. The object-seeking spell didn't work. Did the owner of this thing find out and make preparations in advance? Sulen asked. Hathaway shook her head and said, "No. Even if the owner of this statue was proficient in divination spells and made preparations in advance, the object-seeking spell would only show an uncertain answer, but not a blank." "Then what does this mean?" Sulen asked. "There are only two reasons for a blank. One is that this item doesn't have an owner, and the other is that the owner of this item isn't in this world." "Isn't in this world?" Sullen's eyes narrowed. "You mean, this item was thrown here by the evil god?" "That's most likely the case." Hathaway nodded. "In order to gain believers, the evil god will do everything possible to put his power into the main material plane. This statue is his bait. This statue will gradually affect the mind of the person who picks it up. In the process, it will subtly influence and tempt the person, and in the end, it will develop the person into its own believer. Ordinary people will be affected after picking it up for 3 to 5 days. Then they will gradually become its believers." "Are there many of these things?" Sulen picked up the statue and asked. "In fact, it's not easy for the evil god to send this thing in, so there are very few of them." Hathaway smiled and said, "You should know about the plane's rejection. It's usually very difficult for gods or creatures from the lower plane, upper plane, or astral plane to enter the main material plane. The evil gods instill some power in these statues, and then spend a lot of effort to secretly send these statues to the main material plane. This way, they cultivate believers. When the number of believers is enough, they will even secretly set up a church and perform a large number of sacrifices. They can obtain the evil god's power through sacrifices. Later, they can guide the evil god's clone to descend, or even the evil god himself may descend." Sulen nodded. Under normal circumstances, the evil gods would not descend with their real bodies. The main material plane suppressed them greatly. Usually, a part of their clone would descend to harvest flesh and blood, souls, and faith, and then strengthen themselves. Under normal circumstances, it was very difficult for the evil gods, demons, devils, angels, and oracles to descend to the main material plane. The usual method was to let the believers in the main material plane use magic circles to summon them. Only with the cooperation of these believers or summoners could they come to the main material plane. This was a kind of self-protection of the main material plane. They should be grateful for this kind of protection. Otherwise, the main material plane would have become a battlefield long ago. Demons and devils were very eager for the many souls in the main material plane. They wanted to enter the main material plane all the time, and it was obvious that the evil god was the same. "I should know this evil god," Sulen said as he played with the statue in his hand. "You know it?" Hathaway was a little surprised. Of course. What do you think is special about this statue? Sulen pointed at the statue and said. Hathaway observed it carefully and said, the heart. There's a hole in the statue's heart. Yes, this statue is very likely that old friend of mine, the Heartless. Sulen smiled. The cultists he had annihilated last time were the cultists of the Heartless. After he discovered that the cultists were causing trouble in northern Garrison City, he directly dealt with them all. Even the cultist's avatar that the Heartless had sent down at that time had been destroyed by Su Luan. Not only did it leave him with a lot of experience, but it also gave him divinity. Back then, the evil god had unwillingly left an evil god mark on Sulen. Clearly, this time, it was very likely that it had sent this statue near Northtown City because of the evil god mark. What do you plan to do with this? Hathaway asked. Sulen smiled mysteriously. I have my ways. He snapped his fingers lightly, picked up the evil god statue, and left the wizard tower. Sulen already had an idea about the use of this evil god statue. He was prepared to help this evil god establish a heartless church and let those people believe in him. Of course, this wasn't because Sulen was crazy. He was planning to raise pigs. Since the Heartless was preparing to recruit believers, harvest faith, and souls, Sulen would help him grow. After growing to a certain extent, he could summon the evil god clone of the Heartless. An evil god clone was a good thing. Killing such a clone would not only give a lot of experience, but more importantly, divinity. The evil god clone contained divinity, which was something that could be desired but not sought. Under normal circumstances, it was very difficult to obtain divinity. In the material plane, there were too few creatures with divinity, and these creatures were very powerful. It was not easy to find these creatures with divinity. Many of them had powerful allies, such as unicorns. Unicorns lived in the elf forest and were protected by the elves. Now that Sulen had discovered the evil god clone, he naturally planned to give it a try. Of course, Sulen had never heard of anyone providing believers for the evil god. This method was very dangerous. The evil god was a very powerful creature. Once this happened, it would be easy to fail. The evil god clone was not stupid. Sulen had to be careful. The evil god clone was not weak. It would not be easy to kill it and steal its divinity. After thinking for a while, Sulen went to the place where the slaves were kept in Northern Town City. Most of the Guan Yedong here were goblins, kobolds, gnolls, and some orcs. Sulen was not that cold-blooded to let other humans become believers of the evil god. Plus, Northern Town City was severely underpopulated. He would not send people to their deaths. So, he planned to use goblins, kobolds, and gnolls as believers of the evil god. As for whether the evil god had any objections, it was not within Sulen's consideration. The evil god would not care so much as long as there were believers providing him with faith power. There were a lot of kobolds and gnomes in northern Battlefront City. There were around 50 to 60,000 of them. Selecting a few hundred of them to become believers of the evil god and provide energy for the evil god was a piece of cake. It could be done easily. Su Luan selected some kobolds and goblins, a total of 500 people. Then he locked these goblins and kobolds together with the evil god statue. According to the evil god statue's ability, these people would be influenced by it in a few days and finally become believers of the evil god, providing the evil god with the power of faith. Chapter 412. Establish a Cthulhu church? Sulen wasn't familiar with this business. What should he do? It wouldn't be easy to make those kobolds, gnomes, or gnolls become believers of the heartless Cthulhu god. In this world, he hadn't joined a church and believed in the gods, so he didn't know much about the gods' method of recruiting believers. Now that he was recruiting believers for the Cthulhu god, he didn't know where to start. Cthulhu Church, isn't that a cult? Sulen clapped his hands and immediately thought of something. Cults existed in his previous life too. Back then, there was a huge scandal. There was also a similar type of pyramid scheme. These cults and pyramid schemes were simply brainwashing. Sulen found 500 gnomes and kobolds and chose one to be the priest of the Heartless Church. Then, he gave him the statue. Sulen didn't have to do anything. In a few days, he would become a believer of the Cthulhu god. My name is Hall, and I'm a kobold. At first, I lived in the wilderness with my companions. Every day, we were busy avoiding enemies and searching for food. Ever since I was born, I've never had a full day. Later, we heard that there was a lot of food near the river, so we came here to survive. As expected, after we came to the river, there was a lot of food growing in the soil. My companions and I felt full for the first time. The feeling of our stomachs being filled was wonderful. But when we were resting, a group of powerful humans rushed over and we became captives. My companions and I were brought to a tall and magnificent city. Every day, we would have to move rocks, dig fields, and do all kinds of work. Every day, we would be exhausted. Although I wasn't used to it at first, I soon felt that this kind of life was actually quite good. Because I didn't have to worry about being hungry every day, and I didn't have to worry about being attacked by wild beasts when I slept at night. I felt that I was really lucky. I thought that I would live like this for the rest of my life, but the following changes changed my life. That day, my companions and I were brought to another place by humans. We didn't have any work, just rest. We didn't have to work, and we even had food. It was so blissful. Right, when I was eating, I found a statue on the side of the road. I don't know who left it there, but since I, Hall, found it, it's mine. On the second day after I picked up the statue, I woke up early in the morning and felt my mind clear up. Last night, I actually had a dream where I became the master of all the kobolds. Every day, all the kobolds would bring me the best food, and the most beautiful kobolds would be free for me to choose from. This feeling was amazing. But what was that mindlessness? Can he give me these things? On the third day, God. I was actually chosen by God. It was incredible. I was actually chosen by God as a believer. As long as I believed in him, I could get everything I wanted. What was there to consider? I was his believer. T.S. God says. How? Suluan looked at the kobold he had chosen. After becoming a believer of the evil god, he was clearly different from ordinary kobolds. The most obvious difference was that this kobold had become smarter, and he had even started to preach to other kobolds. However, it seemed that his preaching wasn't very effective. It seemed that he needed Suluan's help. Sulen hadn't been idle these days. He summarized all the cults and pyramid schemes in his previous life, as well as some ancient religions, methods of recruiting followers, and wrote a guide for preaching. The guide mainly talked about the methods of preaching, brainwashing. The simplest and most effective method of preaching, brainwashing, was pyramid schemes. Speaking of which, Sulen had encountered one in his previous life. One of his cousins had been tricked into one. Other than eating and sleeping, all he did was go to class. He talked about success, hard work, and the future. To put it bluntly, it was nothing more than a pie in the sky. Sulen planned to let the kobold Hall do this. He went to find Hathaway first and told her his plan. Hathaway frowned and hesitated. You're helping the evil god recruit followers. Have you thought about the consequences if you lose control? That evil god of the Heartless, can he really come? Sulen pursed his lips. The evil god wasn't like the other gods. If others knew that he dared to come, a large group of legendary professionals and priests from various churches would rush over. Divinity was a rare resource. An evil god carried a lot of divinity. If he dared to come in person, he would be courting death. Even the gods would send their avatars to snatch it. Sulen couldn't wait for the evil god to come in person. Even if he doesn't come in person, he can still cause trouble, Hathaway said after hesitating for a while. Sulen patted his chest and promised, don't worry, I'm ready. There won't be any problems. Okay, what do you want me to do? Seeing that Su Len insisted, Hathaway could only agree. It's very simple. Don't you know suggestion and memory weaving? Give the kobold some knowledge for preaching and let him do what we want, Su Len said with a smile. The effect of suggestion was similar to hypnotism. It could make people do things according to the spellcaster's requirements unknowingly. Of course, this didn't mean that this spell could be used to do whatever one wanted. Even if there was suggestion, it couldn't make people do things that were too unreasonable. However, after this spell was combined with memory weaving, it wasn't difficult to imbue a kobold with knowledge and memories unknowingly. Moreover, after the memory was imbued, the kobold would only think that he had received a gift from the gods. The gods had given him knowledge, and he wouldn't think that someone had done it on purpose. Okay, let's do it tonight. I'll cast hypnotism on them later and weave their memories, Hathaway said. Soon, when it was dark, Hathaway and Su Len went to the camp where the goblins and kobolds were. They cast hypnotism on the kobolds and goblins in the camp. Su Len found the kobold named Hall, and Hathaway began to cast memory weaving on him. Memory weaving was a very difficult spell to perform. After all, the brain and soul were very delicate. If one wasn't careful, it was easy to turn them into idiots. Fortunately, Su Len didn't want to impart much knowledge this time. After some effort, Hathaway successfully imbued the knowledge into Hall's memory. Under the effect of suggestion, when the kobold woke up the next day, he would think that he had received a divine revelation at night and that the gods had blessed him with this knowledge. As expected, early the next morning, the kobold Hall announced that he had received a divine revelation as soon as he woke up. He had become the messenger of the gods, and those who believed in him would receive the gods' blessings. Su Len also asked the guards to cooperate with the kobold Hall and hand the food of the kobolds and goblins to Hall for distribution. With the authority to distribute the food, Hall easily made the kobolds and goblins obey him. Next, Hall began to preach. The mortal world is like a prison, and all living beings suffer. In the Void hometown, everyone is equal. There is a god descending from the heavens, Wuxin Patriarch. Followers of the Wuxin Patriarch, as long as you believe in the Wuxin Patriarch, you can eat your fill every day. You don't have to starve or be oppressed by others. You can also enjoy the offerings of others and enjoy the things that only humans can enjoy. Why are we oppressed and enslaved? Are we born like this? No, it's the oppression of others, but we can't resist. Only by believing in the Wuxin Patriarch, the gods will give us power and bring disaster to our enemies. Learning medicine can't save the kobolds and goblins. Only the Wuxin Patriarch can save us. Open your eyes and take a look, we have reached the most dangerous moment. If we don't believe in the Wuxin Patriarch, no one will care about our lives. Comrades. Friends. Fellow believers. Wake up, as long as we unite and believe in the Wuxin Patriarch, nothing in this world can stop us. Are you sure there's nothing wrong with what he said? Hathaway and Su Len stood not far away and looked at the kobolds and goblins in the camp who were surrounding the kobold in the middle with fanatical expressions. Su Len glanced at her and said, I think it's great. Look, those kobolds and goblins have now become believers of that evil god. That's not what I'm talking about. Hathaway glared at him. I know what you mean. Do you think these kobolds and goblins can succeed if they want to rebel? Su Len said with pursed lips. Judging from their fanaticism, they must have provided a lot of power of faith. In a few days, the evil god will begin to give back to the believers. Be careful, don't let those churches find out. Those churches will never tolerate the evil god. Be careful, they might come after you when the time comes. Hathaway said with pursed lips. Don't worry, everything has been arranged, Su Len said with a nod. That's good. By the way, how long do you think it will take for the evil god to come looking for you? Hathaway asked. I'm not sure about that either. Why don't we wait until it's about time and force him to descend? It's up to you, just remember to inform me when the time comes. Under normal circumstances, the evil god was very vengeful and would usually take revenge. Su Len had killed its church and its clone, and finally took away its divinity, which was a great humiliation for an evil god. After accumulating enough power, he could not wait to send his divine power incarnation to seek revenge on Su Luan. You said you helped the evil god establish a church? He won't thank you. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.